It is 7 o'clock. We're going to start with opening of our public hearing. I will read this for us. Village of Romeo, notice of public hearing. I'm going to assume on 24-25 millage rates. Does yours say the wrong year, Catherine?
Yeah. Sorry, I gave you the wrong ones.
A public hearing has been scheduled for Monday, May 20th, 2024, during the regular Board of Trustees meeting to be held starting at 7 p.m. or as soon as possible afterwards within the South Building Meeting Room, 361 Morton Street, Romeo, Michigan 48065. The Village Council of the Village of Romeo will hold a public hearing on the fiscal year 24-25 recommended property tax millage rates to be levied in 2024. The property tax millage rate proposed to be levied to support the 24-25 adopted budget will be a subject of this hearing. The meeting to take action on the millage rates will follow the public hearing during the regular Board of Trustees meeting. A copy of the adopted budget is available at the clerk's office at 121 West St. Clair, Romeo, Michigan 48065, or available online at www.villageofromeo.org. The total number of mills to be levied and the purposes for each millage are: for our general fund operating, we are at 10.2076. For rubbish, 1.5. General highway, 1.4002. Cemetery, 0.7174. Our street improvement is at 1.6221. And if you are in the DDA district, you are at 6667. This is our public hearing. Do we have any comments at this time regarding our millage rates? Hearing none, I will close the hearing. It is 7:01.
Nothing in writing, David? No.
Not that I received. Did you receive anything in writing?
No, I did not.
Okay, now it is 7:02. I will open our Board of Trustees meeting for May 20th, 2024. Let us stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk Trapp, could you please call the roll?
Bartholomew?
Here.
Edwards?
Here.
Fowler? Care?
Here.
Parker?
Present.
Russell?
Present.
President Poznanski?
Here.
We have 6 present.
I would like to give an excused absence to Trustee Fowler, who did allow us notice of his illness. Be noted. Moving into our approval of the agenda. This is tonight's agenda. Do we have any additions, deletions?
We good? Under unfinished business, if we can add a D, the elected official ordinances that Trustee Parker was working on. And then E, the president bond that we had voted on at the last meeting for Mr. Clark to look into.
Well, say that one more time, I'm sorry.
The president bond
Oh, yeah.
that we had voted for
Yeah.
Mr. Clark.
If nothing else, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve tonight's agenda for May 20th, 2024 with said additions.
Support.
We have a motion by Parker, support by Care. All in favor? Aye. Do we have any opposed? There are none opposed. If I could just make a comment, in watching our video back last month, could not hear anybody. I know our microphones were on, but can you pull them towards you or speak into them? Moving into our approval of minutes. We have multiple different minutes here. April 15th, and then let's do them separately. Let's just start with the April 15th meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from April 15th.
Support?
Okay, I have a motion by Parker, support by Rousseau. Do we have any comments? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None opposed. Let's move into our closed session minutes. Those are the, whatever blue you would call this.
I'll make a motion to approve the closed session on April 15th, 2023.
Support?
Minutes.
Motion by Parker, support by Rousseau regarding the closed session meeting minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We have none opposed. Everyone, please get these back to Clerk Trapp at the end of the meeting. We have our April 23rd, our May 7th, and that sentence is not finished. However, they are not in the packet, so we will just wait on those.
Got it.
They're not here. For the special meeting minutes, our budget meetings,
No, they're not in the packet.
they're not here.
Yeah, they're behind, they're at the end of the packet. I've got them both.
Okay.
I think mine were in the back.
Okay.
Oh, I do see May 7th special,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yellow and green.
Dig through your packet.
23rd,
It goes right in front of cemetery.
17th. Oh. Yeah.
No, the April,
I got budget
Should we three of them?
May 7.
in front of it.
Oh, that's
Sure did
cemetery.
put
Yep.
one in front of that.
I don't have
Oh,
it.
cemetery. then we get cemetery.
Nope. Nope. Let's see.
Did you not get them?
I mean, I saw them, but they're not in my packet.
We can, there's no issue with doing this next month, is there?
Okay, let's
Okay.
just hold off on
Table
it.
till next month.
Yeah, let's do that.
Table to next month.
Prefer to. The other special meeting minutes.
Yeah.
I apologize, be better organized. Okay, we're into our approval of the bills. We have bills in the amount of $35,334.82 and $146,310.65. Do we have discussion or a motion?
I'll make a motion to pay the bills as presented.
Support.
We have a motion by Edwards, support by Bartholomew. Do we have
I did
discussion?
have one question, I'm trying to find where I noted it. It wasn't major, I just didn't see any explanation in the description. Where did it go? Oh, for Ray Wiegand's nursery for the 2,600.
Our tree board, that will be put under the, out of their
Tree board.
budget.
I got
But
you, I didn't see it.
trees for Arbor Day, I do believe.
Okay.
How about Simply Clean by Katie?
Is our new cleaning lady,
That
correct?
is our new cleaning service that services the village hall, the police department, this building, and the cemetery.
Okay. Is it comparable to the others? Yes, no? As far as the rate?
Yeah, well, the other service did not do this building, but otherwise that, yes, it's very comparable.
What was the
What's
other
getting
one?
cleaned at the cemetery?
Just the restroom over there,
Okay.
that's all.
Any other questions?
Is that
Yeah,
monthly? I'm sorry. Is that monthly?
It's twice a month?
This rate is twice a month?
That rate
That's
covers
total.
4 weeks of service. That payment that you're seeing covers 4 weeks of
Okay,
service.
all right.
For all the
That's
buildings.
what okay, thank you.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Well, I guess we can, didn't we just make the cemetery employee a full-time position
Yes.
to oversee maintenance and grounds? Do we have to send a cleaning person out to, I know it's minimal, but do we have to send a cleaning person out to clean out a single restroom?
That is coming strictly out of the cemetery fund, so that would be a cemetery board decision.
Okay, so that's divided out. Okay.
Which we do oversee that budget, do we not, Mr. Clark, in essence?
Well, the cemetery has no ability to raise money except by the millage. So I'm not going to say that you totally oversee that budget, but you do participate in the funding of the cemetery
Okay.
for its operations.
And how much is it for the cemetery bathroom?
I believe it comes to about $30 per visit, and it's twice a month.
Okay. Any other questions?
For the statements that come like Home Depot, Tractor Supply, and Chase, they've been in here, that's been great. Can we get the actual receipt, I guess, to know what, I'm saying maybe the odd things, like Target or Amazon, or Sam's Club. I mean, things like memberships we can figure out based on what it's saying, but if there's anything that's not quite clear like that, can we have the actual receipts attached so we know?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Or at
And-
least a note, or at least a note written next to it that would explain it.
And then on Home Depot, our balance is much reduced. I saw your writing. Did we return something, or?
No, when payment was made while the other statement was coming in the mail, ships passing in the night, because
Okay.
we have confirmation that those amounts were paid previously.
Perfect, thank you. That's all I have.
Okay, any other questions? Just as a reminder, we had a motion by Edwards and support by Bartholomew. All in favor to pay the bills?
Is that a roll call or what typically for money?
up to you.
Roll call.
Could you please call the roll?
Okay.
Thank you.
Edwards?
Yes.
Bartholomew?
Yes.
Parker?
Yes.
Care?
Yes.
Rousseau?
Yes.
President Poznanski?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Included in there, you would also see the treasurer's statements of report. Okay, moving into our presentations. I have the pilot presentation. I know the DDA wanted to come and speak.
Yes, thank you. Danielle Lee with the Romeo GDA. I gave you a hard copy of the letter that was sent to you. I understand some of you don't have access to your email, but it is in your email, and now you have this copy. So I'm going to just read this letter. This is from the GDA board. We are writing to bring to your attention a matter of concern regarding the parking fee schedule to be imposed on businesses in the downtown area where off-site parking requirements have not been met. As the Downtown Development Authority, we are tasked with protecting and growing the sustainability of the district, and we have observed the impact that these fees have had on our downtown businesses, particularly in terms of discouraging new business and hindering economic growth. Given the current challenges facing businesses as a result of various factors, including the ongoing economic recovery, changing consumer behaviors, we believe it is crucial for us to reassess the PILOP ordinance and its implications for our downtown businesses. We believe there are several solutions which could provide the same result without considerable burden to any one business, including but not limited to parking meters along Main Street and prime parking locations, lowered PILOP fee to a reasonable amount and provide payment plan option, create a fund in which the DDA and the village would contribute amount yearly. Parking studies have been done over the years showing one of the primary issues downtown with parking is management and wayfinding. The DDA has already slated wayfinding as a high priority project. This, along with enforceable parking regulations such as parking meters, could provide a long-term sustainable solution which spreads the burden over many versus a small few. An estimate done by Parking Box shows if you have 150 parking meters at $5 per spot, at 365 days a year, you would have $273,750 in revenue. That is a pretty significant end result for a very insignificant impact to the daily user. Some information to consider from Sustainable City Code. Parking in lieu of fees, also known as park and walk systems, are generally used in larger cities and suburbs. They are often utilized if a defined area has sudden developmental growth or there are multiple establishments renovating their property. These funds are in lieu of having or meeting individual off-street parking requirements. Pursuant to ordinances with parking in lieu of fees, new developments are required to pay a fee into a designated fund. Several examples given were from municipalities with over 100,000 residents. These are considerably larger than Romeo. The fees were considerably lower as well. Research done by Walker Consultants, which is a planning and engineer and architect firm, said even if in lieu of fee rates are set high enough to fund new parking, the rate may exceed the amount a developer would be willing or able to pay. A developer may instead elect to build the required spaces on site. Further, depending on the community and market conditions, development can occur in drips and drabs. A critical mass of development is often necessary to generate the funds necessary to build a new parking facility. This has already happened here in Romeo. A developer was going to have a new restaurant on the first floor, but had to change plans to build a parking structure on the first floor, as it was more economical than paying the current pilot fee. The threat of $10,500 per spot is driving developers and entrepreneurs from building or starting a new business in Romeo. Some other pilot costs for reference: Palo Alto, California is $12,990 per spot, where Bend, Oregon is $510 per spot. Plymouth, Michigan instituted a valet pilot program during the peak seasonal times. The DDA helped offset costs, and visitors paid $5 per valet. This is just another example of a creative solution to parking concerns. Walker Consultants also said communities should first examine existing underutilized parking supply before building new facilities. New parking should only be considered when a city has a reasonable assurance that it would be highly utilized for significant periods of time throughout the day. Some states have prohibited local jurisdictions from imposing or enforcing minimum parking requirements for development projects. This has been in areas with closed public transportation location, but should give us some pause on what our current parking ordinance requirements are. Situations are ever evolving. Should we be calculating parking spots for a bank, which is primarily conducted online today, the same as we did 20 years ago? They just don't need as many parking spots as they used to. We've also reached out to the Michigan Downtown Association director, who spoke with several MDA members at the national conference. The consensus is that $10,500 is very high for a town of our size. Additionally, if the village does not have any current plans to build a parking structure or parking lot, it is not advisable to charge businesses for something that doesn't exist and no concrete plans are in place. They also recommended that the parking ordinance may need to be reviewed to see if it's outdated or too strict. We are committed to helping find a viable solution that will create a parking fund, as well as promote growth downtown and not deter new businesses and developers from coming to Romeo. Thank you for your attention to this important issue. We ask that action be taken immediately by resolution to reduce the fee to $100 per spot for the time being. We also ask that a subcommittee be created with representatives from the Village Board, Planning Commission, and the DDA to research and provide a viable solution that will address the parking fund in an equitable manner. By doing so, we can alleviate financial burdens on businesses, attract more businesses to downtown area, and create a more welcoming environment for residents and tourists alike. We understand that this decision may require careful consideration and deliberation, but we urge you to prioritize the long-term sustainability and vitality of our downtown community. Your support in this matter would be greatly appreciated by our business community, both current and future. I understand there were some concerns about having another subcommittee and that we already had a PILOP subcommittee. My understanding that committee was to figure out how to enforce this fee. That's not what we're suggesting. We're suggesting a subcommittee to try to come up with a viable solution. And then we'd also ask that we reduce this fee as soon as possible.
Thank you. And the DDA. Next, we have our Romeo District Library. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Claire Beaker. I'm the director of the Romeo District Library, the one on Van Dyke and the one in Kezar, across from the Abbey there. I am here with some updates and some statistics for you. Right now, we have just under 20,000 registered users in our service area, which is kind of an astonishing percentage. Our community is really supportive of the library and big users. We circulate approximately 150,000 items per year. We are fine-free for all of our materials. Patrons can request materials from other libraries that may have fines, though, just as a heads up. Last month, our patrons used our digital services, ebooks, downloadable books, audiobooks, etc., 4,700 times. There were also almost 10,000 people who came into our buildings, 1,200 of whom attended programs at our 2 library branches. We have public computers for anyone who needs them at both branches. We also have strong Wi-Fi at our buildings for those with their own devices. We're happy to help with the computers and regularly help people who are job hunting, working on school or certifications, or people who are applying for assistance. There's more people in this community than I think a lot of us realize who need extra help and don't have the resources at home. We have collaborative efforts with the Romeo Community Schools so that all teachers and students have access to our services. Students are issued virtual cards, which grants them access to free online tutoring, those of you who are in here and need tutors, as well as databases they can use for assignments and research. We also have our outreach van, RDL on Wheels, that visits the 9th grade academy and the middle school every week. We'll have a story walk up in the village to align with our summer reading program. I'll be contacting businesses in the next week. That's an excellent partnership with the DDA. We are operating with a budget of approximately $2.5 million and have a good fund balance to handle repairs and other capital improvements. More than 90% of our budget comes from property taxes, and we also have had clean audits for the past 5 years. We are in the beginning stages of a space needs assessment with library consultants to determine what we need to do to meet the future needs of our community as it grows, technology advances, and expectations of the library change. So I wanted to tell you about some things you may not think of the public library as doing, but we do. You don't have to come into the library anymore for a library card. You can apply online and we'll mail it to you. We have ways to verify that you're eligible for your card, but we encourage you to come into our buildings because we have a fantastic staff and you need to meet them. We also have free notary services. A lot of people don't realize that, but we have staff members who are notaries. You just have to call ahead and make sure that they're available. We have 24/7 holds lockers at both buildings. It's like Home Depot or Little Caesars, sort of. That's the easiest way to explain it. But if you request an item and you asked it to be put in the lockers, you just come up to the lockers in front of Kezar or in front of Grabner and scan your library card and the locker will pop open with your materials in it. So if you're at Kezar before 11 o'clock when they open, it's a perfect way to get your stuff. We also have a home delivery service for anyone who requests it. You don't have to be eligible or anything. It's just if you're in a situation where you need us to bring you something, we can do that. Our newest offering at the library is a library of things. It's available at the Grabner location. It includes GoPro cameras, Wi-Fi hotspots, which are very well traveled. They work on cruise ships and up north. Something to consider. We have a sewing machine, a microscope, a virtual reality headset, vintage video game consoles, and a VHS to digital converter. These items are available to our residents only and can be checked out for 3 weeks. We have a program called the Michigan Activity Pass on our website. You can use your card to get free or discounted passes to parks, museums, and attractions. Our most popular pass is to Stony Creek Metro Park. You can get a free pass there for the day. And other examples are Meadowbrook Hall, the Selfridge Air Museum, and the Sea Life Michigan Aquarium. All the, and Legoland and Peppa Pig World are also on there. So if you got kids or grandkids and you're trying to figure out what to do with them this summer, you can check that out. You can download ebooks, stream videos and TV shows, read magazines and newspapers online through our website. At no cost. Our newest acquisition is the Macomb Daily with full graphics on the day it's released. So I know a lot of people have a hard time getting their hands on the Macomb Daily. You can go to rdl.org and click on Macomb Daily and it's right there with full ads and everything. We have story times all over and not just at the library. Our librarians have done story times at local parks, farms, orchards, and firehouses. So at the last firehouse one, we had 75 people show up and firemen with shaky eggs singing along to the songs. It was fantastic. We have a librarian who's a tech tutor, and you can set up an appointment with him if you have a new phone or tablet and need help learning how to use it, or if you have an older relative who needs help with that and you don't want to be their IT support, send them to the library and we'll take care of it. We also, at Kezar, have the Romeo Community Archives and a full-time archivist at our branch in the village. You can research genealogy, the history of your house. If you live in the village of Romeo, we probably have information on the history of the ownership of your house, military records, and history of our area. We were fortunate to have original copies of the Romeo Observer donated to the archives back to the mid-1800s, and we're in the midst of a project now that involves scanning all of those copies into digital format so they can be accessed by the public and they'll be able to be searched by words or names, et cetera. And we're up to about the 1960s in there, so we're closing in on the end of it, so. But that's all I've got.
That's it. Thank you, Claire.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
We have our GSAPS update. I was informed that Donna was unfortunately not able to come, but she passed her information on to Trustee Care, who will read her update.
Yeah, we'll keep it pretty brief. It's 3 items. First, Anna would like to let us know that the This Place Matters event was a big success. 200 people attended. They added $30,000 to the Green Space Acquisition Fund. Second, pledges continue to come in. So far, they have raised $338,000, and they are over 2/3 of the way to their current goal of $500,000. Lastly, the Board of Education invited GSOPs to present at a special meeting on May 16th. We had a good discussion after the presentation. After closed session, the board voted to extend the acquisition deadline to November 1st. I think it was previously July, June 1st. So they have more time there. They are developing a new detailed plan with monthly milestones and will continue to update everyone as they go. That's it.
Thank you. And then we have our EV tip presentation. Where's Carmen? There you are. I have the adapter up there for you to plug into. So Carmen's back here to give us an overview of all the projects we submitted and where we're at and where we're going to go.
Thanks, everybody. Take a minute to put this in. I hope it works. Alrighty. Go back up to the top here. It's trying. There we go. All right. Good evening, everybody. If I've met you before, it's good to see you again. If I haven't met you, it's my pleasure being here tonight. I'm Carmen Wells Quigg, and I'm with the Economic Growth Institute at the University of Michigan. And we've been working with the Village of Romeo on what is called a name we can agree on, we don't quite care for, but the Electrical Vehicle Transition Impact Project. But essentially what that means is that it is a program that is funded by the state of Michigan to provide technical assistance and some project funding to communities that have been impacted by automobile plant closures due to ICE to EV, which is internal combustion engines to electric vehicles. And we know that the Romeo Ford engine plant closed. So the technical assistance that we're providing, we've been doing this for over the course of almost a year now. And as President Pozansky said, I'm here to provide an update on where things stand right now. So this process really allowed for community engagement and input. This wasn't the state coming in saying something has to happen a certain way. This wasn't the University of Michigan coming in. We're a technical assistance provider and a solution provider. We're just here to help facilitate conversations and bring forward a strategic planning process so that a lot of community voice, community engagement, input can be involved to identify opportunities for the Village of Romeo. This process also helped identify successes and opportunities. We'll be working on a final report in the not too distant future. We're not there yet because we're still in the process. And then also this process has helped us identify projects for this current funding opportunity, but also for future planning by the village.
Here's a screenshot of what we call our scorecard. I understand this is pretty much a small printout here, but I'll read it. It includes a goal, priorities, and objectives, and this is something that can be left behind or shared for future distribution. But essentially, for those who haven't seen it before, the goal for this particular planning process was determined as follows: to serve the Village of Romeo residents, businesses, and nonprofit or service organizations by fostering an environment of economic stability, resiliency, and growth. There were 4 strategic priorities that were identified, again, in this current day, which includes asset management, operations, economic development, and quality of life. And under each of those, there were a series of objectives that were identified. So under asset management, objectives of safety, functionality, and effectiveness were identified. Under operations, objectives of team staffing and methods were identified. Under economic development, objectives of downtown vitality for businesses, transportation, walkability, and accessibility, placemaking, and tourism were identified. And under quality of life, objectives of transportation, walkability, accessibility, downtown vitality for residents, and livability in great neighborhoods. So for myself, not knowing a lot about Romeo before entering into this engagement, I feel like this really paints the picture of what I've seen across the Village of Romeo in the last year. So I wanted to just, again, this is just an update. I'm not going to spend a lot of time, but I will take questions. Our projects discussion recently, I'll detail out what's happened most recently. In the last phase of the project, where we put a call out for projects to be submitted, ultimately 11 projects were submitted, and they ran the gamut of opportunities and projects and priorities for those who were submitting them. At the May 6th strategy team meeting, which was the most recent strategy team meeting, the team reviewed and discussed these projects up against the strategic value, which basically means the priorities and objectives that I just read a moment ago. And then we started to see some projects that rose to the top. So this graphic just shows that, but what this graphic also represents is an unbiased representation of the projects that were submitted up against the goals and the priorities that were selected. I want to be clear here on a couple of fronts. One, this is just an update. We're still in the process of the project. And 2, all of the projects that were submitted will be retained in this strategic plan for future reference and hopefully action based on opportunities and funding that come in. So I don't want to say that when my term is done here, that the projects will go away. They will be retained in the strategic plan. But we do have a limited amount of time that my team is on the project, as well as a limited amount of funds that's been given by the state. So we have to make some decisions, and the team discussed maybe some upfront projects that could be looked at for this initiative. Again, before I show you those, also the team discussed a few different things. We wondered whether any projects came in were duplicates. We had a few duplicates, which was great. People are thinking of the same thing. We were able to merge some of those projects together. Have any of the projects already been started by the community? We were able to get updates about maybe progress towards these projects that might need a little boost from this investment, or projects that might be new. Might there be a lead organization? You know, is it the village offices? Is it another leading organization? Who would lead the project? And then other questions that we discussed. Ultimately, right now, 2 projects kind of bubbled up to the top, and they were called the CBD, or Central Business District Tree and Sidewalk Replacement Project, and the CBD Central Business District Wayfinding and Signing Installation. Interestingly enough, we heard a little bit about that today. So that's where we stand right now. And again, it doesn't mean that the other 9 projects are not going to move forward. It just seems like these 2 have the most strategic alignment right now. And it sounds like they've been talked about for a little bit, and they are in need of investment. So what's next? What's next is that we need to answer a few questions to see if these projects are feasible. We don't know what the cost is fully for all of these projects, so my team is going to be working with Megan and others to figure out who might help us get answers to these questions. We're going to talk about timelines, other required resources. We're going to talk about any of the policies or approval processes, any environmental requirements or regulatory requirements, or other barriers. So there, of course, is a whole lot of information that still needs to be gathered regarding these projects. But again, me and my team are here for capacity building. The intent wasn't to be burdensome on the village with this project. It was to help move things along. So we've got some questions to ask to figure out, again, which ones are feasible. But I think we'll likely start with those top two that we had mentioned. And then next steps, again, this data collection period, just to try and get some additional information. And then also, as I mentioned before, I'll be compiling a strategic plan report. But we will be having my team at EGI, Economic Growth Institute, help with the implementation of whatever project is selected to move forward and to help facilitate that funding that has been identified by the state of Michigan to get things going. Now you might ask, wow, sidewalk repair, that could be, hundreds of thousands of dollars. Well, that's for us to figure out. Maybe some of these projects have a phased approach, so maybe we could kind of, kick off phases of these to get things going. So there might be a number of avenues or pathways that we'll take, but I'm thrilled that with this investment, some projects could get a second look here in the village. That's my presentation. I'd be happy to take any questions.
So what's the next step?
Next step this week, I've got a call set up with Megan, and just to try and start to get the direction of answering some of these questions. She'll likely send me in the direction of where I can get some of these answers. And so that might take a number of weeks to figure out essentially the feasibility for these two projects. We'll write up an assessment on that. And then depending on if there are any of those environmental requirements, approval processes, we'll look to Megan as well as the village council on next steps regarding those things.
Who's picking which project to do?
Well, I'll come back to the strategy team. We've got a strategic team. Once I have an idea of all the information that's there, we'll present it back to the strategic team, and we'll decide whether we'll move forward on one or both, depending on the information that's there. We do have $100,000 from the state of Michigan, so that is somewhat limited. And so that might, again, have us lean toward a phased approach, but that might help make the decision for us. Other questions?
The two projects that you mentioned, is that the sidewalks and the trees and the signage downtown? That's what you're referencing?
Yes. Yep.
So wouldn't that potentially be a duplicate? Potentially, I say, because we were just asked by the DDA to consider something with the DDA. So would we be duplicating resources by this strategic team looking at it versus the village itself and the DDA?
Maybe that's a question I can't answer, but what I would say is I would be asking that same question, what other resources are out there, depending on cost.
That's something that we could all collaborate on. If the state has 100, and if between our board, DDA board, and we want to move this faster than 4 phases or such, we could all collaborate together. We just have to see what this amounts to, really.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Thank you, Carmen.
All right, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, we have no correspondence, and we're moving into our public comment. This is the public comment time. You have 3 minutes to speak on any topic you would like. Please come to the podium.
I'm going to make this quick. The DDA kind of already echoed what I'm going to say to you guys, but I've lived in Romeo for the past 40-some years. Most of you know me. I'm on the DDA board also. My name is Paul Bowers. I have multiple investments in the village, two of which are large projects that are currently on contaminated brownfield sites. With the current rising costs of labor and construction cost, add in these parking in lieu of cost, it's created some hardships that are stalling our projects and others probably in the village. Projects such as mine will bring jobs to the village. It will bring housing to the village. I feel that these fees are hindering our growth of the village, and we should be embracing new businesses and not pushing them away to some of our neighbors that maybe embrace them a little bit better. So I echo what the DDA said. I hope that you guys will really look at these costs and lower them. I would also suggest that you revisit your parking calculations. I know in working through some of these designs, they seem to be very outdated. So that's all I would ask, is that a real hard look is taken today, and hopefully you guys can make a decision on lowering that fee. You do not want to deter people such as myself that have lived here their whole life to reinvest in this community. I love this village. I love this community. I've raised my family here. I've invested my personal money here, and I want to stay here. But these costs, $10,000 a parking spot, is absolutely ridiculous. I've invested in other areas, and that is so far outside of the norm that I hope the village really takes a hard look. I appreciate the time, and thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any other public comment?
Hello, Sharon Smith, 377 North Main. I'm a member of the Romeo Rotary and just wanted to give everyone an update on the Village Park drinking fountain. We were approached by the Friends of the Park to restore that, replace it, so we've got it all back. It's got all of the masonry around the outside of it is all done, and it's ready basically to have water supplied to it. I'm hoping that we might be able to have that by June 8th. That'll be, I guess, the DPW to do, but then we were also hoping to do kind of an unveiling as well. So just wanted to kind of bring that to everyone. And then the other thing I wanted to just ask of, or maybe throw some ideas out there. I know that with the streets that we just had done, I think it was Semco has to dig some of them up to replace some gas lines. So with that in mind, and I know I had brought this up at one of the meetings with the previous administration, that as we're looking at all of the street work that needs to be done, why not talk with some of the utilities to find out, do you have plans for doing any replacement? Because if they do, like we're seeing now, we can maybe get them to go half and half with us to help us with this cost, and then also have a positive impact on our not raising taxes. So just something to think about. Is something when I lived in Salem, Massachusetts, we had National Grid basically paid for all of the repaving of Derby Street and the Derby Street neighborhood. So I don't think it's out of the question for us to approach Semco and say, hey, if you're going to tear up the streets, we want you to help with the putting them back in a nice way. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. Do we have any other public comment? Mr. Blanchard.
Good evening, Mr. Blanchard from 196 Dickinson Street. Once of all, thanks again for taking care of business, but please be mindful of the money that you're going to try to raise for the roads. I'm in the asphalt business. I know that asphalt is going up daily, and I don't want you guys writing a check that we can't cash. And also keep in mind that probably 25% of our population is on fixed income. So also, I understand our roads need to be fixed, but please be mindful of what it's going to cost us in the end. And let's not start any work that we don't have the funds for. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Blanchard. Any other public comment? Okay, hearing none, we are closing public comment and moving into officer reports. Oh, Chief, would you like to kick us off with officer reports? I asked Chief to give officer reports. I don't know that this will be indefinite, but at least for the time being, while there's, let's just say, remediation and put back of the police force and station properly, instead of me trying to remember everything, I've asked Chief to speak on his behalf.
Awesome.
Evening, everybody. So we had a conversation last time I was here at the budget meeting where I brought some things to your attention. I wanted to, I guess, reiterate some of those things. Things that are really just at a state of critical mass. They can't be delayed any longer. And then some of these things that we need to consider for the 2025 budget year. Things that I've done in month one. I submitted the 3 bids for the body armor issue that we discussed last week. I believe it was last week. As I stated, every officer wearing body armor for the Romeo Police Department right now is wearing expired body armor. The newest body armor in the building is 2 years expired. I submitted 3 proposals with a recommendation on the one to accept. I hope that that's done soon, as I've already prearranged the fitting for those, just so that I can get out in front of it and get that ordered as quickly as possible, assuming that it's approved. The radars for the patrol vehicles. Those are all non-functioning. They've been pulled out of service, and an approval was made for me to order 2 new units to replace 2 of the 4. 2 new Chevy Tahoes were ordered this week. That's something that can be put on the 2025 budget, as they won't be built until February. Delivery isn't estimated until next spring, so next year around this time. So the 2 cars, they're a couple of years outside of the rotation, we'll squeeze by with for another year. Currently getting bids for the replacement of in-car and body-worn cameras. This is also one that's at a state of critical mass. None of the in-car cameras are functioning properly. A couple of them aren't functioning at all. Every single body-worn camera being used currently is also not functioning properly. As a matter of fact, one was reported to me Saturday night by the midnight shift officer that his didn't turn on all night long. So it's just working intermittently, which is the reports I'm getting from all the officers. I looked into these cameras. They're only a few years old, but they're very cheap technology. I have bids coming in this week for the replacement of those. Getting bids, I already have some bids, but getting the remaining bids for replacement of the in-car computer systems. I've already got a bid from Clemis, have Core Technologies coming in this week. Bids for the computer replacements, as well as the upgrading the operating system that they function on. Give you an example of where these computers are at. They're 12 years old, and I renewed the contract to have all the computers in the building with software to debug the computers. One of them was taken down to the site today, and they tried to plug the system into the in-car camera, the in-car computer, and it wouldn't function. The computer already operated slowly, but the technician said, we can't put this system on this computer, it will shut the computer down. They're operating at 4 gigabytes. Should be no less than 8 gigabytes at this point. Got all the bids, and they were submitted for the replacement of the in-station cameras, which we discussed last week. Those were submitted. Hopefully, we come to a consensus soon on what company to go with. That bid includes a replacement of the cameras inside the police station, as well as adding cameras to the village office and the campus around the village office. That's it for the things, some of the things that need to be replaced now, as well as things that need to be budgeted for in 2025. A few other things that I've done this week is I have two grant opportunities I'm working on. One of them is to get the village reimbursed 50% of the cost for the body armor project. Hopefully we can get that completed tomorrow. And lastly, I discovered a grant opportunity for the replacement of, or reimbursement of 75% of the emergency generator that I believe is on next year's budget to be replaced. I submitted that paperwork on Friday to FEMA, so fingers crossed that we'll get approved for that. That's a fairly significant cost savings to the village.
Thank you.
That's all I have for you tonight.
Thank you, Chief.
Thanks, Chief.
And just to touch on the radars, we do have 4 speed radars. However, in the essence of being conservative and not knowing how far this is going to reach into our expenses, I asked if we could get by with 2 for now, see where we get at the end of all of this, and maybe 2 at the end of the year if we still are in a good spot. Otherwise, waiting till next budget. Said that was acceptable to still get by and be able to do all of our runs with 2. And then in regards to the vehicles, because it's such a long waiting list, I said, if it doesn't put us required to purchase, put us in the line. So this isn't saying this is what we're going to do. We're taking the power away from the council in a decision. This is us just getting in line. Should we want that, we will be able to purchase those next year in our budget. We have interceptors, correct?
Yes, so to echo your comments, Madam President, the Ford Motor Company is phasing out the police package, so they're not going to be making police cars for very much longer. So you have all these agencies flying towards General Motors and the Chevy Tahoes. The downside of that is they're backlogged, and even if, as you stated, we get in the queue. We have made no commitment, no financial commitment to them, but we are in the queue, and we just have to submit the paperwork for them to proceed. But they've told me that, as I stated earlier, those won't be built until February. We can't expect delivery till next year around this time. The only other company making police vehicles is Chrysler. And so what I've discovered about the Tahoes is they're a bigger engine, bigger frame, and as I stated at our last meeting, the normal rotation of our cars right now is 3 to 4 years, of which they're outside of by a couple of years. But we can expect that the Tahoes, which are frankly only about $5,000 more than what we're paying for the Ford Interceptors right now, they should last us 2 or 3 years longer. So, but yes, ma'am, we have not, when I say we ordered them, I got them in the queue. We have not made any financial commitment yet, so.
Thank you. That is, even if we wanted them for this budget, it wasn't going to happen. So at least get in line so that next budget, we at least have the option.
How far out were the radar devices?
The radars?
Do we have them already, the 2 radars?
Nope, they've been delivered. They said that they should be here probably next month. They're going to send the hardware for installation ahead of the radars. That we expect probably this week. But I'll just set that stuff aside, and one of the things I'm doing is researching and getting bids on companies to build the cars. I understand that the last chief did that himself as a kind of a hobby. I don't do that, so that's going to be an added expense to the cars as a company to build them. And there are only a few in the state, so I'm talking to them, trying to get some financial estimates on how much that's going to cost. Both of the companies that I'm in conversation with build police cars, ambulances, fire trucks. It's what they do.
I think, don't we have a local that outfits right off McVicker, Apollo?
What is it
Or
called?
maybe they just do fire. I think there's a company right off of McVicker called Apollo. I know they do fire equipment. I'm not sure about police.
If you're familiar with something I'm not, I'm all ears, because
Yeah, we can talk later.
there's only two companies I've found so far.
too, because you
see the trucks and
stuff coming in all
the time.
What was the
Possibly,
Chrysler option for police vehicles?
the Durango.
Do you have any research on the longevity of those?
Yeah, we had experience with those in my former agency, and they were not good. As a matter of fact, they've got some decisions to make too, because Chrysler's phasing out the Charger from their package. But we were under orders, standing orders, not to order any Durangos again.
Wow.
So they were not holding up.
Okay.
But I'm getting good feedback about the Tahoes. I had a conversation with our mechanics last week about that, before I got too deep in that discussion with General Motors, and they spoke highly of them. They're holding up very well.
Good.
They're getting a couple more years out of them.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Do we have any more questions? We're all good? Okay, moving on to our report. Let's start with you, Nathan. Do you have a trustee report?
Nothing at this time.
Trustee Edwards?
No, I don't have a report, but I would like to say I hope you all were able to get out and see the Northern Lights the other night. It's kind of hard to see with the naked eye, kind of make some things out, but if you took a picture of them, for some reason, the camera just set it aglow. It was just amazing. So hope everyone got a chance to go out and see that. So that's all I got.
Trustee Rousseau?
There was the tree board, thank you to the Village Tree Board, they're doing a fabulous job. They had an Arbor Day event, as you know, and planted some trees over at the Orchard Trailside Park, and that was very nice, very well attended. Had Mark Heckel, our president, several other folks out there, so thank you, Tree Board, for all you're doing. Looks great. And then I would say, just remember, there are still, this is the season where everyone's walking about in the streets and the sidewalks, and we're out and about with our dogs. So if you have any vegetation, trees, flowers, if you could keep them cut back off the sidewalk so that people can pass safely without having to go out onto the road or up onto someone else's lawn, that would be greatly appreciated. That's it.
Trustee Parker?
Planning, we can hit that while I'm here. Planning chair did have a request to re-look at the members of zoning that are also on planning. He felt there was a conflict there. He may have had a discussion with you at some point, but he asked me to bring that up tonight. We also did review the restaurant, I think that we discussed, or DDA discussed earlier. I think the biggest thing there was they wanted to lease spacing from the Abbey, the church, but it was outside the footage in our ordinance. So I don't know if that's something we want to bring up here, or let planning continue to hash that out, or do we look at that with the whole PILOP ordinance?
Anything for trustee?
No.
Okay. Trustee Care?
I'm all set.
Nothing? Clerk Trapp?
The cemetery roads are now complete. Thank you to Somerset Paving for doing a great job in such a timely manner. We do ask that all vehicle traffic needs to stay on the paved roads, and please do not drive on the shoulders. We're already repairing those. AEW is putting the finishing touches on our new Romeo Cemetery app. This will make looking for loved ones and genealogy much easier. The app should be ready to launch in early June. Along with the new app, maps will be available soon, also for the cemetery, new maps. Thank you goes out to Sue Howard and all the other volunteers from the Ladies Auxiliary that have been placing flags on veterans' graves all month. Thank you for continuing to volunteer. This coming Wednesday is the deadline to turn in application for interest in the newly surveyed cemetery plots. Deadline is Wednesday at 4 p.m. I would like to send my condolences to the family of Frank Pinito, village resident and building inspector at Washington Township. I, along with the staff in our village offices, have worked with Frank before, as recent as this past April. He will be missed. That's all I have.
Real quick, Catherine, you just touched on the applications for the cemetery plots.
Yes.
I've had several questions on where to obtain those.
The village offices.
And if someone can't make it in during village hours, how
They
do
would have to
get-
contact me to set up a time
Okay,
or
so
to
they
set up a
weren't-
pickup.
Yeah, they weren't available online.
They are not available online.
Okay.
Because they all have their own individual number already on the application, and that can't be reproduced
Okay. 'Cause
online.
there was a
through-
concern raised that if I can't get there during normal village hours and I went and the door was locked, how then can I get in line for these spots?
Yeah, well, they could contact me.
And what's your phone number? Will you say that in case
Fi-
they're
oh, sorry.
watching? That's okay.
586-752-3565, option 2.
And they most likely have to do that tomorrow or Wednesday and then return it by 4 PM
Wednesday. Yes, yes. It was advertised, so we've had this going on for, I believe, 3-4 weeks? Yep.
Thank you. Am I the last one? Let's move into our president report. Since the last meeting, the Treasurer Miller and myself hosted 2 Village Tax 101 seminars right here in this room on April 16th and April 17th. It was recorded. We didn't have the biggest turnout, however, I know you'll all watch it and enjoy that. Arbor Day. We had another successful tree planting at Trailside Park. This year, we were able to add 10 trees. Again, thank you to Macomb County and Green Macomb for all their support, and also to our Village Tree Board, who are the true heroes in ensuring that the tree canopy of our village is sustainable for all generations to come. With our RH Romeo High School presentation, I wanted to say thank you to Miss Ellerbrock and her class for having me. I was able to stop in and answer questions for a couple of hours with the students. They wanted to pose regarding their projects and their concept projects at Ford Engine Plant. And then I labeled this our family talk. I needed to pull it in here for a minute as a family and just have a group chat. When visiting or calling the Village Hall, I would just ask that we all treat the employees with dignity and respect that you yourself would want to be treated with. We ask that when you come into the Village Hall, I know that sometimes you have a topic that might be a little heated or you have a question. We ask that you do this and refrain from yelling, swearing at, threatening the employees, or writing threatening notes. We're here to help you guys, not to deter you, but this kind of treatment, it should go without saying, but it's just not acceptable. We're all adults. Let's act that way. Also, on a brighter note, as we go into the warm weather, let us remember a few of our housekeeping ordinances. That is with grass cutting. Lawns reaching 6 inches or higher will be addressed. And then also with our garbage. Make sure everything's in the proper receptacle, your garbage can, your recycling bin, and even your waste paper bags. And that those do not go into the street gutter. They will stay on the easement. If your easement is too small, then it's on the sidewalk there. On days such as today, if you had something in the street, what would have happened during the rainstorm? You're piling the water up, storm water, we're having issues. Garbage, receptacles, everything stays up out of the streets, and then also no sooner than Wednesday. So if we're out doing yard work on the weekend, we don't put our yard paper bags at the street, please. For the council and anybody that paid attention, at the end of last meeting, we made a motion for an offer of a grievance. That was not accepted, and we move into the next steps there. In regards to our Eagle Lead grant, we were awarded the full amount. What this means is that we are able to spend up to the $360,000. Not that we are just given that. We do have to provide receipts and proof of everything we do. It also means that the engineering costs, so the up to $5,000 in their assistance to help create the application, and then any further with the tracking of it and their involvement will also be able to be covered under this cost. So all of this will be done with no cost to the village. Let's see, the Michigan Municipal League Women in Leadership, I was able to finish that class the other Saturday at the beginning of the month on May 4th. We had our final capstone. The rest of the class was online. Learned a lot, met a lot of different women who have a lot of experience, and I do plan on polling from all of them. And I just wanted to say thank you to the village and to you residents for allowing me to take this training. That was $500, and I do appreciate you giving that to me and trusting me with that. Had a meeting with Armada Township this past month. I wanted to just bring the council up to speed, kind of where we're at. Was kind of hoping we could have some conversations and get somewhere and start moving. However, it seems things have kind of stalled out, so I wanted to bring everybody up to date here. I reached out to Supervisor Paderak to have this meeting regarding the Armada's fire and ALS coverage of the Village of Romeo properties that are located within the township, specifically the annexed portion. It was to understand Armada's stance on their ability to tax the Village of Romeo properties outside, of course, of its statutory 1 mil operating levy. What happened is, in essence, our village property owners in the Armada Township portion, they're being taxed twice when it comes to fire and ALS. As the village, we pay for our fire and ALS contract out of our general fund. And Armada Township is also taxing these properties for fire and ALS. I'm being advised by our legal that Armada Township does not have the right to do this. And I do see it as our duty to stand up for our residents and our property owners. At this point, I've asked Mr. Clark to reach out to their legal, see if we can't get another step, another way in there. Otherwise, unfortunately, the village is going to have to take a strong step and make a statement. Either way, what are we going to do? Also then, taking into consideration how we will cover the fire and ALS for that section. So just something that I wanted to bring everybody up to date with. I'll let you know where we get, if we get anywhere, and what the next steps will be. The next thing into the Romeo Ford High School, and they're envisioning the future of the Romeo Ford engine plant. They, on May 29th, which I believe is next Wednesday, the students are doing a workshop, or not really, a presentation of their boards. And then we have businesses all around town after that for 1 week, from May 30th to June 6th, that these boards will be put in the windows and everyone can walk around and see the concepts. I'll tell you what, it might just be for fun, but it is really cool. These kids have some amazing ideas. I mean, wouldn't the Romeo Zoo be really cool? And a sports park where we have all the different things that you could go to while also having an eatery in the middle. Just really re-envisioned this, thinking outside the box. It was really enjoyable to see where their concepts went. So I would encourage you, we have a whole list. I think the DDA shared the list of businesses all around town and in the libraries. Check out their boards. They put in a lot of effort. So that was encouraging.
Will you be inviting a representative from Ford to come and see these?
They have for the presentation on the 29th.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I believe it's open to the public, if anybody would like to go. For our village, with our budget, we continue to meet. We had 3 of our 4 meetings did not happen, so we've rescheduled them for June 3rd and June 10th at 7 p.m. here, so we will still be working on our budget. And then our Vintage Fest is coming up on June 8th, 12 to 6. This would include classic car show, vintage campers, children's activities. The activities for the children do start at 11. And then we have a beer and wine tent and live entertainment. So that wraps up my president report for the month. Let's actually do some business. Committee reports. Bruce Township Sewer Subcommittee.
We met just over a week ago. Preliminary talks discussed their need for additional capacity and how that's going to look. And I asked them to bring back a breakdown of when they felt they were going to need the certain amounts of capacity over the next 5 to 10 years. So next meeting is set for 6/24, which is a Monday. Yep. At 6 p.m.
Okay, thank you. I look forward to those minutes. Unfinished business, moving into our PILOP ordinance. I included in the packet for you different information. Some information on background leading up to how we got to where we're at. There's a memo from Casson Planning Group, which was our past village planner. Planning Commission minutes, Village Council minutes, where we assigned the price of $10,500. Just all for background. And then I have a few different ordinances, tried to poke around at different local municipalities that have some sort of ordinance or payment in lieu. So what do we have in here? Ferndale, I know there's Rochester. I was able to get a hold of Rochester to find out what their fee is, because I know it's been talked about before. Our fee is close to theirs. It is not. It started out at $12.5. They realized that wasn't getting them anywhere, so it came down to $7,500, and that was for a surface space, not a parking garage space. And then about 3 years ago, it moved down to $1,000. This is $1,000 for the space. If it is 10 or less spaces, that must be paid in full before they get their C of O. If it was more, 11 or above, then I believe their council made up approved a payment plan for that one.
No interest.
Have that? Did you do some research?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was 10 years, no interest, yeah.
Um,
Over the 10 spots.
They did suggest how they pay for theirs is metered parking, some sort of way to recoup the money that maintains them and creates them. I don't know. Council, discuss.
We've brought up metered parking for 20-plus years, and
We had it
just-
at one point?
it
Yes,
just
we
gets
did.
fought tooth and nail by the residents. It goes nowhere. So I don't know if it's something you want to tackle again, but historically, it hasn't gotten anywhere.
I mean, I'm not looking for extra work, but I mean, if that's the way we wanted to go, I guess I'm here to do the job.
How much does it cost to maintain a parking space? Do we know? Like say that the parking lot that we have,
I don't think we have a breakout like that.
okay, and to develop a parking space like Church Street, do you know how much each space?
That's where the 10.5 came from.
That's what I thought, okay.
Yeah.
Did it? Because I thought we.
I went back and watched the video. That's at least what we were told.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what I
Yeah.
thought.
So, and I thought about that further, since this has been discussed more recently, and then if we're gonna be charging several businesses a payment in lieu of, is it fair then to charge one business the 10.5 to cover the entire spot if you've got multiple businesses that will eventually be paying into the payment in lieu of, or should that be then a lot
The-
smaller and spread out? Because it's not gonna be used by one business solely 24/7. It's gonna be rotated if we follow the parking ordinance, every 2 hours, right? You're gonna get a rotation of that parking. So if you took that 10.5 based on the cost of developing, how many spots, how many times it's gonna be used a day on average, and then divided that out over the course of a year, 6 months, a month, I don't know, and developed a cost that way to spread that cost out over several businesses.
There was one, I think it was Rochester, they made I'm not going to get the word right, it was like a parking district. And then they were able to apply, essentially, fees to, parking management district. They put fees then for whatever spaces you use, for everybody, not just for anyone coming in with new development needing extra. Somehow they establish a fee for that, and however many you use, you pay for. So if you are a business who doesn't need any, you don't fall into this. If you're a business that needs 2 or 5, then you pay that times the amount that you
That
that you need.
Church Street parking lot, I think cost us $80,000 for the land. And then whatever it cost to pave that place and do the landscaping and all that, had to be at least, we'd have to guess $20,000 to $30,000 on top of that.
Oh, at least, I think it came out to 300 something.
Yeah,
So
it was in the
uh,
hundreds.
It was, I mean, you figure what, we got 15 parking spaces maybe over there? And we paid $140,000 for it.
It was over 3. By the time
300?
it's all said and done.
And that's just the creation, that's not even the maintenance.
So-
There's continual maintenance, snow
The fact
plowing.
you would pay $1,000, well, okay, that's not gonna get you anywhere. I mean, I won't even buy the piece of property to build a parking lot on.
Yeah.
Right, I just think the conversation is we need to kind of flip the script a bit and reimagine this in a different way, that we're not recouping that cost just from a payment in lieu of, but what other way can we generate revenue? And if we're not willing to do that, then we all need to be willing to pay for it. We can't have both.
Yeah.
Right.
I think you had made the argument before, maybe it was at the DDA meeting, about parking meters, and you mentioned something about residents already paying, why are we gonna charge them
Yeah, if
again?
you have parking meters and then you have a resident comes downtown and has to pay the meter, just like you said. I remember the
what I'm
meter
saying.
discussion years back.
Well, Mr. Fowler was one of the prime people fighting that tooth and nail.
Yeah, but think about this too, and I remember this clearly. The 2-hour parking limit that was put into place downtown was put into place in hopes that people would not leave their cars there all day, business owners wouldn't leave their cars all day. And to the best of my knowledge, unless Chief is going to make a change here, it was said publicly that that's a suggested time frame and that we aren't going to enforce that. So I'm wondering if we start to enforce that, if that will help the transition of timing. Business owners won't park there, maybe people won't park there for the entire day if they don't have to. But if we're not going to enforce it ultimately, maybe we shouldn't have the signs out, but if we are, maybe we're gonna be generating revenue from parking tickets. Just a thought, something I think we need to look at is, it was said we're not going to enforce it, so
It's a good point.
why do we have it, or should we enforce it as a
I mean, we
piece of
suggested
revenue?
that business owners park in an outer spot, such as the new place.
And I think they
over
should, I
on,
really.
Bailey and.
Yep. That
And
Bailey lot's
basically,
half empty.
business owners flipped us off and said, we're not gonna walk.
Well, there's some that did. I mean, there's some that used to, I should say,
Ted did it.
that, I mean, they used to park all on
Yeah.
up down Lafayette Street and kept their employees
Mm-hmm.
and themselves away from the customer parking.
Mm-hmm.
But I got, to Paul's point about the outdated parking numbers, where I agree, and like the bank
Mm-hmm.
this example makes a great point, but if we're talking about restaurants, one is 2 hours typically enough. If
Right.
someone's gonna go and enjoy a dinner with
Yeah.
family and friends, maybe a cocktail, whatever that might be, is 2 hours not enough? And then also restaurants now probably, I would argue, require more parking than they did 40 years ago or 30 years ago, because you're adding in different bartenders and different managers and a lot more staff to most restaurants than I think historically we used to have.
Do we
especially
know
in the
if the
village.
bank owns those parking spaces though?
The bank,
Behind
the
the
bank
bank?
corner,
Yeah,
I think they are part of, are they part of, I'm gonna ask Paul, they're not part of your consortium or whatever, so they own what, 4 spots?
They have signs up for, no, they own that whole, what used to be that alleyway.
And I'm sorry to reach out, but I know
They
Paul.
have 4 spots with, I think their signs up, and then they allow everybody else to park there.
yeah, but they actually physically own those spots.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
physically own that entire,
Alley.
behind the bank, and it actually turns and goes like behind all those businesses too.
Yeah.
And a year ago, they had people out there, employees out there with a clipboard letting people know as they pulled in, if you're not coming into the bank, you can't park there. They literally just stood out there and told people that.
I didn't know that, but.
So, I've never had any issue, and I don't believe it.
So I would like to see directional signs and sign management happen and see what kind of effect that has. Because I think if people know there's parking options,
I think we have some of that down there, but unfortunately, the signs aren't.
yeah, it's not really,
I think at the time, they went more for artistic value or acquaintance value instead of, hey, here's the parking, kind of
Yeah,
thing. A
'cause if-
sign that stood out that told people where to go park.
right. And if you drive into other municipalities, you'll see a sign. It's still cute, nice,
Yeah,
little
it's quaint.
tasteful, but it says,
Yeah, small map.
downtown business, parking here, whatever, whatever. And so as you're coming in, you can see where to go and what to do.
Yep.
And I think that might help in some regard. I know
That
the
kinda goes
Bailey
back to
lot
what
is.
Carmen was talking about, right?
Yeah, exactly. And the thing we got to remember too is we're a little bit of a very fortunate small town. We're used to parking right out front Main Streets and getting our cup of coffee, and that's
Yep.
not exactly a reality all the time. I mean, if Partridge Creek Mall, if you go there to get your cup of coffee, you're not parking right outside the store. So we got to kind of remember we're very fortunate with the walking community that we do have.
Very much so.
And it's okay to go a half a block. I mean, you walk farther than that in downtown Detroit to go from the Fox to your dinner. So, but I would really like to see signage happen first and either enforce the 2-hour limit and see what revenue that generates or what turnover, or if that helps.
But in the meantime, what would we be looking at for a charge here? mean,
I think 10.5 is insane. I thought it was insane when it was implemented.
So where did that number derive from? You mentioned it was
Originally, we
calculated
were
off the lot.
calculating, like she had pointed out, President Poznanski pointed out earlier with Rochester, we were given their numbers back then, which was 15, correct? 15,000.
12.5.
12.5.
12.5. And
But look
it
at
was
the,
just what we came to with the numbers we were presented by.
Well, it was also the
Right.
cost of that Church Street parking lot, too. And if you divide that number by 15, you kind of came out with that same
Yeah,
number.
which then would be, like I said, extreme to charge one person for the full cost of one spot.
Right, especially if we're sharing the parking spaces, all businesses. I kind of like how Rochester enabled a parking district, or however it's titled, just for the fact that all businesses are sharing that cost. It's not fair to make one business owner of one individual small business pay for an entire lot that's not, an entire spot that's not their spot only for their business. It's gonna be shared either way. So there's some burden
Right.
on us and there's some burden on other businesses as well.
They did say that once these spaces were purchased, say a restaurant needed to purchase 5 extra spaces, and then they move and another restaurant comes in and has the same need, it's not a repurchase. Those 5 were purchased for that,
Yeah, I
that
would agree with
space,
that. Yeah.
and it stayed with it. They also had, if you were going to go and parking fee, they offer monthly passes, like cheaper for people that live, work there. So for $20 a month, you had a parking pass, so you didn't always have to be putting coins if you were going to be there.
I think they take credit cards.
Yeah, they look different now than they did. We didn't, you don't have to have one at every spot. You can have more of the station, but it's also infrastructure and it costs.
And then
And someone's gotta monitor it.
Well, the other thing that
What
they included in that cost of recouping, not just for the space and the care, was for the payment of a parking meter, I'm going to say person. I'm not quite sure how many, but they're
I don't feel
was paid
parking
for.
meters are gonna go over well at all.
I'm not a big fan. I mean, I'm good with technology, and I don't want to download 3 apps and insert my credit. I'm just trying to go eat. If I'm trying to go into Main Street for 5 minutes, I don't want to download an app and enter my credit card and sign up for their emails. It's annoying. It frankly stinks.
Yes.
Maybe there's a simpler machine to be had or technology, but people don't like change, and I'm not really a fan of the meters anyway.
Yeah, and then I see the residential streets getting overloaded if we're not gonna monitor the parking of non-residents on the streets outside of the DDA. Well, I can go 2 blocks over and jam up this street and.
Is that okay, though?
Park
Don't we
there.
want to encourage them to park a little bit off of the
As long as it's not
central
in front of my house.
right. Not on my block,
I'm just,
Like Orion is
Right.
trying to encourage
Yeah.
people to walk down the streets, and
Yeah.
they're trying to eliminate
Yeah.
parking lots because they're ugly.
Yeah, I mean, we're very
So-
fortunate to have most of our residential streets are really nice and wide, and we have a very nice walkable community, minus a couple sidewalk dangerous pieces for a rollerblader or something, but we've got a really nice walkable community, so encouraging that is nice.
Megan, has the DDA talked about potentially going together and developing their own parking lot?
that's not a conversation that we've had as of late.
That's happened in the past. The DDA did purchase the property next to Zaco's.
Yep.
And right next, behind FAMS.
It was a while ago.
Okay.
And I believe the village had to finish paying that debt for them because they backed down on it or something happened with payment.
Because it
Long time
sound-
ago.
Mm-hmm.
So for tonight's discussion, let's look at this 2 separate ways. Let's look at the fee. They've asked us to at least look and address the fee. And the DDA has also offered, hey, let's chat. I don't know if we want to get a dual meeting between our 2 groups, get everyone in the same room, or if you guys would prefer to do a smaller subcommittee with the DDA. But let's kind of divide this into two conversations and 2 ideas here.
I think including them in a subcommittee would probably be most effective.
In a subcommittee or a joint
A
board
joint.
meeting?
Yeah, joint meeting.
I think a joint meeting is a good idea. I would like, from my perspective, I would like this DDA to come with solutions that don't cost the residents the money. That's my perspective, but I think a subcommittee would be good.
Who here would like to volunteer on said subcommittee?
Again, is it going to be a subcommittee or
Well, that's what I'm
both
taking.
boards, full boards?
Full board's fine.
Okay. I'll take that back to the DDA for their meeting. We'll get a full board meeting on the books for tonight. Can we then address the fee? What is our decision that way?
I would say, obviously, 10.5 is too much,
Yeah,
right? It's at
I
that point
guess
where it's extreme.
I would follow Rochester's kind of lesson. You know, they've been through it. They went to 10.5 or 12.5 to 7,500.
They stepped it down until it worked.
Ended up till they fell down, bottomed out at 1,000.
Yeah.
And I got a feeling that's kind of where we're going to end up.
I would agree with that.
I do have a question. I don't know, when you talked to them, Rochester, which I didn't ask this question, was they put in some structures. How are those funded? Do you know?
They roll it into the cost of, with their meters and their fines, in the parking permits, and that is all taken into.
I'm sorry. Go
That's all taken in consideration. So if they say this structure is going to cost us $500,000, then they know we can essentially, based off of estimates, recoup so much money each year based off of the fees and however, and then they pay themselves back or they pay it forward. I don't recall which way they did it, which chicken or egg came, but
So they're currently at 1,000 for their payment in lieu of, but then they've also incorporated other means of funding their parking on top of that. So for us, and I'm just throwing it out there, to drop to 1,000 and not have other means, is that not providing what we need?
The 1,000 seems a little bit random to me. I'm not sure that would cover the salt for a year. So, although I'm completely against the 10.5, it's got to be something that you're legitimately going to be able to utilize, that's going to make sense. Like, what is our cost and how are we going to? That's my thought.
Again, it kind of goes back to what Nolan's saying, though. You can't charge one guy for a space that's going to be shared by everybody.
Yeah.
No, I don't think, yeah.
Whether it's salt or whether it's,
at this point, without proof or without some sort of justification and information on being able to make an educated decision on a price, I would venture that we just put a moratorium, rescind the price for the time being, and maybe that will give us some fire behind us getting together and actually doing something, so that this isn't a 5-month process for our committees.
So do we have a lot of businesses that are pulling out right now because of?
They are very much have big question marks of what they're going to do.
Okay, and then. I'm aware, I'm aware. I'm
Okay,
aware.
guys, thank you.
And then, do we have anything happening where we would say, ooh, we missed an opportunity, or now we're involved in an expense because a big project came through and we had a moratorium, and now we wish we would have had that funding? Do you have
I
anything?
understand, and that's where I'm saying, maybe it will put fire behind us to actually show up to our meetings that we say we're going to show up to and get work done.
So if we do away with the cost currently right now, business wants to come in, has 0 on-site parking, needs to provide parking, how do they do that? If they don't have a way of paying for
The same way it was always done without the fee actually put in there. If you have the
No one did
parking,
anything.
if you have parking for your building, you have parking, and if you don't, then you follow whatever the ordinance states.
When I was on the first pileup committee, Chairman Stegner suggested that this board suspend that ordinance for a year to give us time to figure whatever we need to do.
And that's been 3-4 years.
Yeah.
It's
The
been,
pileup meeting.
yeah, that was a while ago, right? That was 2020, 2021.
No,
And that's where
man,
we're
it
saying,
was just a couple
to your
months.
Oh,
concern,
The most current.
Yeah, the most current.
Because this has been discussed with the DDA and.
So that would give us a year.
For
This board has
decades.
the
Yeah,
authority
decades.
to. Puts us
Trustee
off for a
Rousseau, in understanding your concern, that something comes in and then we have something and then we wait and we enact, that's where I'm saying it might need to flip the script idea of this isn't just for those that need parking, more parking. This might be an overall, everybody that is using municipal parking, that is essentially our asset as the village residents. So maybe it's everybody that's utilizing our parking as opposed to just those that are going to need more. So it wouldn't matter if they came in after the fact.
Yeah, I'm gotcha.
And I just feel it's a little irresponsible for us to base our number arbitrarily off of someone like Rochester's, who has a system in place and they have a reason to justify why they're charging that cost.
They
have their ducks in a row.
Yep.
So for us just to make up a number and try to cover the salt, for example, it's just irresponsible. We're not even in agreement that that's our goal of this fee, is to try to cover the cost. We're trying to restructure it to make it work for everybody, so to still stick it to these new specific business owners is silly in my mind.
Well, I was also under the assumption that this money wouldn't go to maintenance issues. It would go to a fund.
Future investments.
Separated and only used to buy additional parking spaces.
And that's what we can talk about. It can be made into that. That's where the parking lot maintenance district, it goes towards that. So as we create this, we could adjust that.
Because I'd hate to get to a point where, whoops, piece of property's opened up, oh, the bank account's empty. That's not what this is for. This is to put money in that bank account so that when property comes up, you can act on it.
And we also have 4 quadrants of parking lots that are crumbling and need to be redone. So we have this,
Need on both ends.
Yeah.
I guess, to paint a picture, right, we currently might not have a quote-unquote parking issue, we have a wayfinding issue, and we need to be able to get people to where they need to be able to park currently. What happens when we let another restaurant or 2 or 3 want to come in that need 10, 15, 20 spaces?
But they gotta know that when they're coming in.
I understand, they know that, they know that, but if we're not
They're
gonna.
committing
Okay, I won't finish.
suicide.
I'm just saying, so we know that, but if we're gonna continue to allow large businesses that require more parking to come in, and we don't establish this, then we're looking at the residents to say, hey, we're gonna raise taxes, or we need to acquire more parking, and we need to maintenance the parking for the businesses. How are they gonna feel about that then? So it's just another way to
Yeah.
look at it, because anywhere you go, right, and I love people wanna come to Romeo, and I love businesses that wanna be here and better the village, but ultimately, they're here to make money, right? And to put that cost onto the residents
It's not fair.
is not fair at all.
No.
Because if you're gonna buy the piece of property and build a restaurant somewhere else, you're gonna have $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 pretty quickly into a parking lot.
Right.
And they're just asking us to say, hey, here, use this, beat it up, we don't care.
Yeah, I
and
think.
let's move on.
I think you're right. The idea, in my mind at least, is that we're still gonna trend to a solution for this. We're not gonna suspend it permanently. We'll still be looking to create those funds and revenue for the time being. I mean, we weren't collecting it before anyway, so if 2 restaurants slip in the gap, God bless them, but we're still gonna try. It sounds like the trend maybe is we're trying to find a resolution that applies to the whole central business district, or.
I can respect that. So if we're gonna pause this, I say we pause this with a date of resolution by
agree.
October.
Yeah.
October's meeting, we come back, we formed a committee, or the committees and the boards meet, and we get ball rolling, we get something done. We don't
It'll
just
put a fire.
indefinitely do this, because this has been talked about for decades.
Yep.
Decades.
Yep.
You know, every DDA board
All
that I've
communities.
listened to has talked about this and got parking studies and did everything they needed to do, and nothing's gotten done. So if we're gonna do this, let's put a date on it.
I'd entertain a motion.
Do we need to make a?
Go ahead, you
Resolution.
got the words.
So do we need to just pause the fee,
I would rescind the fee.
rescind the fee? All right, let me word this. I will make a motion to rescind the payment in lieu of parking fee to a date of, when's October's meeting?
6 months or?
It's summer.
What's that? October. That would be October, until October 21st, where the DDA, planning, and village council can meet and come to a resolution with the ordinance.
Could I just clarify with your motion, in that date, if nothing's done, is that fee coming back, or are you rescinding it, period?
Yeah, so a fee will be put back into place
Okay.
if no resolution's made. Does that motion make any sense, Mark?
It does.
Okay.
You scribbling.
Well, you have two issues. One is the payment in lieu of, and the other is the one on which Mrs. Poznansky touched, and that is the payment in lieu of. It scares people away, it's a lot of money. But it was also a way for people who didn't have enough parking to pay their way out of the problem. So now, you still have the parking requirement. So you're not necessarily going to attract new or different businesses if they don't have the parking requirements that are provided in your ordinance.
That's what I was
So,
getting at.
those discussions, my recommendation would be, I don't sit here, I don't vote, but when you're talking about adjusting your ordinances, revising them, repealing them, you certainly, the parking in lieu of is made by resolution, so you can suspend it by resolution, that's not an issue. But you really have two things going on. It's not just the money, which is significant, and I'm sure for some businesses, it has been the difference between opening and not opening. But if you don't have the parking spaces or the businesses don't, they're not gonna open either.
All right, so I rescind that motion. And I'll make a different motion.
Well,
Yeah, because if it's not gonna make sense,
well, it makes sense,
but then you also have to
Mm-hmm.
put a pause on the whole ordinance, correct?
Well, you can only amend an ordinance with an ordinance. You can change your pilot fee by resolution because that's how you established it. But you cannot amend your ordinance as far as the substance goes, except by an amendatory ordinance.
So just draw it down to zero until October 21st. $0, but leave the rest of the words
Yeah,
all in there.
just the pilot fee. If you pull out the whole ordinance, you're gonna have wild, wild
Yeah.
west.
Yep.
The same thing if it's a zero then,
At
right?
least that gives some,
Because it goes back to what Mark is saying, they're still gonna they're gonna build a restaurant, they're gonna need 15 spaces, where are they at? Where are they?
Yeah, but if we have a zero fee, they've just bought all those spots for zero.
No, because.
they still have a, they have
They
a
still have to have the
requirement.
If they
space.
don't have them, they can't buy them.
Well, if the fee is zero,
But if the
then
fee
they're
is
buying.
zero,
Right.
then they've just bought them for zero. If it's
Yeah.
$1, they
No.
just bought 15 spaces for
No,
$15.
no, they haven't. If you follow your ordinance, let's just use that as an example.
Okay.
I don't have I have the table with me, but I'm not getting out tables, not
Yeah.
unless you make me.
No.
Okay, and so if your parking schedule for a particular business requires 15 spaces and you have 3, unless you can acquire the other 12 someplace, you don't get to open your business. You can't just jettison your entire zoning and parking ordinance. I mean, you can, but you can't. do it by
I understand, but
resolution.
if the payment in lieu of ordinance is in place to establish that and say, if you need 15, you have 3, you need 12 more, you can buy 12 at said dollar amount.
Right.
And if we make that zero, they've just bought 12
No,
spaces.
because they still have to come up with the 12. Where are they gonna get the 12? Because, and this gentleman touched on it, the parking in lieu of is for future parking. You set the
Right.
fund aside, you can't touch it for anything else, you can't use it when some other fund goes low. You have to use it for that, restrict it for that purpose. The business owner is buying something that he or she doesn't have, and that's parking. So you've given somebody the means of essentially paying for something that doesn't exist, but it allows them to open up. And the thought is that in the future, you're gonna acquire property with it to put in a parking lot, you're gonna put in a parking structure, you're gonna do something. So the current payment, if somebody pays it, isn't for their existing parking, it's for parking to be built in the future, and you don't require them because of the payment to have the requisite number that the ordinance requires. It's really a payment for a waiver of the ordinance provisions with the idea that in the future, these parking spots are going to exist.
We'll just make it $100. We'll collect something, we'll pause it, we'll suspend it, or I guess reduce it to $100 until your date of October 21st, and that gets us time to get our ducks in a row. Do you want to make the resolution?
Go ahead.
All right. Make a motion to reduce the payment in lieu of fee to $100 until October, I'm gonna say 21st, to give the boards the opportunity to come to a resolution on the ordinance by that date, or the initial fee goes back into place.
Support? Do you need support?
We have a motion by Parker, support by Care. Now, just for clarification, with our joint meeting, we had talked about Village Board DDA. At some point, you mentioned planning. Is this, was that just a slip?
Yeah, it was a slip.
Okay.
afterwards, yep.
Is that, okay,
DDA
just,
and
okay.
village.
Just want to clarify.
Sorry.
Will you need anything in writing or motion to set that forward, or
I-
we could just get together?
I think we're good. You call the roll when you're ready.
Parker?
Yes.
Care?
Yes.
Bartholomew?
Yes.
Poznanski?
Yes.
Edwards?
Yes.
Rousseau?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
It is 8:40. Let's get a move on, people. Just kidding. Our proposed flagpole ordinance, bringing this back unfinished from last month. You see it here in our table form.
So like we discussed, the planning board beat this up for months. I think it was almost 12 months. It feels like this went back and forth, primarily probably because of the incident in downtown where the flagpole came down. It's not a bad ordinance. I'm personally not 100% in favor of it, restricting people's ability to put up a flagpole of the size they want. To me, seems it seems unfair, but again, this is what the planning board presented, put together, 20 feet roughly in the residential, office, commercial, industrial is a 30-foot maximum flagpole. They could also, in office, commercial, and the industrial, could have 3 flagpoles. That's basically where we're at. Talks about inspections for the installation of them to make sure it's installed per their manufacturer requirements. Basically enough cement in the ground to hold a pole of the size you're putting in. So there was some safety concerns with that.
So is your only hesitation specifically the height maximum?
Yeah, we moved around a couple other things, changed some things. That was restricting location of the flagpole on people's properties. I think that's been eliminated. I went back through this final draft. I don't see it in there. But at one point, they discussed if it's on your property, you had a 20-foot pole, you had to be at least 20 feet away from the property line, which then would put smack dab in the middle of someone's maybe front window where they're looking out at the street. And I didn't see an issue with putting it on the corner of the lot. And if it falls
Right.
down, it falls, you know.
Or at least
hopefully you have
little bit off
homeowners
the lot.
insurance, right?
So is this something you want to continue beating up planning commission with?
No, planning probably will not look at this again. It went way back and forth.
I don't mind the height maximums, but it would be, I'm not really picky if you want to put it closer to the edge of the lot. I understand why it's probably in place, so if it falls, it's not falling on someone else's property. We don't have that ordinance for trees, so,
And you don't have that ordinance for a structure either.
Right.
When a
Right.
structure falls, you know, most are 10 feet from property line, they're taller than 10 feet, they can fall on your property, neighbor's property also. So,
Yeah, I
mean,
think the
big
more
thing, like
important is
industrial
the-
district, I mean, you have some big properties out there, big businesses that could easily have a 50-foot
flag.
pole. I think we've got a 50-foot, couple 50-footers pulling into the village at the gas station. I think those are taller than 30.
I think the more important thing is the safety, the inspection of the proper footing and
Yeah.
such.
Yep. So I would be interested in adopting this. Let's strike the commercial and change it to 50 feet. And can you point me into the spot where it talks about the distance from the property line?
See, I didn't see it in this final draft. I'm sure you guys read through it too. I went through it and I didn't see it.
This says
included.
the property owner shall determine the location
It's within the
property
property.
lines and
Yeah.
verify the flagpole
I think
being
that was
installed.
eliminated.
If we can back up, Nolan, before you read on, because I think we're going to have to change it. On the second page, it's about halfway down, it says, "All freestanding flagpoles shall be maintained in good condition, free of significant corrosion, tears, and fraying." I'm thinking the tears and fraying are referencing the actual flags, not the pole. So I don't know if that's an appropriate placement for that. Do we want to address the actual flags, or just take those words out?
I think it's nice if there's a nasty tethered flag, at least it gives us some
Yeah, but
enforcement.
the ordinance it's only referencing the pole. So it would not apply to the flag itself. This is all freestanding flag poles.
Right.
It doesn't say
Shall be
and
maintained.
flags.
And then, again, I'm for it too, but who's gonna go around making sure everyone's flag's looking good? You know what I mean? Like, so we either have to include a flag piece or take out the tears and fraying.
I don't see an issue with leaving them.
Leaving them?
Mhm.
But you're referencing the poles.
And its mechanisms, so it could be referencing
I
the
think-
ropes for raising and lowering the flag.
Then we should
Which-
say poles and its mechanisms.
I see where we're going with this, yeah. Change the wording.
I mean, I think the flag and its equipment is an extension of the flagpole. I don't really see a big issue with it. I see what you're saying, but I think it's just a gray area at this point. I'm gonna go ahead and make a motion to adopt this ordinance, but striking the commercial to 50 feet, and that is my only change.
Let me, real quick, commercial is different than industrial. So
We,
those districts define are office, commercial, and industrial. So if you're
Office
changing,
wouldn't really
you're
apply for
changing
that.
that to 50 feet across the board.
I don't think office would really apply to that, because that could seep into our,
Your office district is
Our
what it
west
is.
is- yeah.
That's where it is, which is our businesses.
just
So
commercial
the only
and
place that
industrial.
it's restricted to 20 feet right now is R1, RM, and then basically your CBD, your downtown, where it's kind of tight to get a 50-foot pole in there anyways, right, in most of it,
So
but.
just industrial would mostly apply to.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, restricting it to
Okay.
20.
Oh, I think it's a 50. Okay, sorry.
Okay, do we want to continue with the motion, or do we want to table?
You want me to bring this back to planning? They're gonna love me. To look at that?
My motion's gonna stand. I'm just gonna
Okay.
change just industrial to 50 feet. Office and commercial can stay at 30.
Support.
Do we want to see this rewritten then before we make? Okay.
I'm comfortable with it.
Just industrial to,
Just industrial to 50 feet. Sorry, Catherine, that's probably a lot of white out.
No, that's fine. Is that changing it industrial to 50 feet, or is it striking?
Changing industrial to 50 feet. Office and commercial would remain how it
Then,
is.
again, before we vote then for discussion, if we're not taking this back to planning, what is the total maximum size for that pole that we'd have to include?
Well, we have a spec for per manufacturer recommendation anyway.
Yeah, but not to exceed the square footage that was researched by our planner. So if we're gonna go up to 50, we'd probably want to amend that section also There's no reason to put up a 50-foot pole with a smaller flag.
All right, well, I'll rescind my motion. Just bring it back to planning commission. I'm done. I give up on the
I'm
flagpole.
sorry, I'm just bringing up the things that are coming back up.
I know.
I rescind my support. That's perfect.
All right, back to planning. You're gonna love me.
Yes.
Are we okay with the fee?
$200?
Yeah,
I think that's fair.
that's fine.
If we accept what comes back from planning, does that include the flagpole permit with it? Do we need to accept? Or is this just an internal form? We don't need-
Right, this is what actually held up our discussion from last month, is you guys didn't want to put an ordinance into place without a permit and a proper fee. So that's really,
It's part of the package? Okay, all right. So then, Catherine, I would ask you, the flagpole location drawing, is that suggesting that people can just draw a picture right on here? Or do you want a legit, because in the ordinance, it says product specs or analysis or plot plan.
Well, I took this template from our sign permit, because this is also what we accept for a sign permit, but if we wanted to change the regulations of what is acceptable for a visual, then we would just, you as a board would just put in the regulations then, and I could change the wording.
Okay, so the only reason I was asking is because the ordinance has specific wording of what you have to provide.
Okay.
But the permit said drawing.
Right.
So I wasn't sure, can you just do a drawing, or do you have to go by what's in?
I think it requested a plot plan in
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
ordinance.
Yeah.
And I think we ventured away from requiring a site survey
Yes.
for the fact that, same thing with the fence. If you put up a flagpole and your neighbor wants to challenge that it's on his property, that becomes a civil matter, and it's outside of the village.
Right, so in your permit here, do you want a plot plan and product spec or analysis, or can they just do a drawing?
I mean, a plot plan are pretty easily obtained. I think you can print those for the most part from the county, right?
I don't know, but I think the wording should match.
Yeah,
That's all
I would
I'm
agree. I
suggesting.
would agree, maybe change from drawing to
Okay.
plot plan.
Okay, that's all. Okay, thank you.
moving into our tree board proposed ordinance updates. Again, this was brought back from last month. There was a little bit of concern over some of the wording.
So again, still on the first highlighted on the back of the, so page 2, it says from the utilities within 48 of their receipt, so that should probably say 48 hours. Correct? I would assume, not days. I thought we talked about that last time.
Oh, I apologize. I didn't do any adjustments to this. This board said it was going to look into something and talk to the tree board. You were going to ask them something, so.
Yes, and we haven't done that, so we'd like to table it, and then I can bring it back.
Oh,
Okay.
gotcha.
I just don't want you to start tearing it apart, and it's
Oh,
like,
I-
I didn't do anything to this, because I wasn't told to do
Okay.
All
it.
right, I make a motion, we table it until
Okay.
after the next tree board meeting.
Okay,
There's no motion.
We're just gonna table.
Okay.
yeah, we
I
don't
know
need
you
to.
don't need to make-
Okay, there you go.
Thanks, Nolan.
Moving into D, which was added, elected officials ordinance.
I can give a quick update. Me and Mark have met, started. He got a draft over to me for both, reviewed, and we'll either sit down or bring a rough copy to next month's meeting for discussion. That's where we're at.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Run before it starts to come
I
down.
know, I hear
E, into the president's bond. I think this was specifically regarding past President Malzahn.
Right, and I'll fall on my sword for that. I don't have a copy of her bond, and I did not ask anybody at the village office to provide me with one. So before I venture any opinions or advise you on any direction or not to take, I would ask you to postpone this for a month or to your next meeting, and I will in the meantime look at the bond that she had to post. I apologize for not doing so before tonight's meeting.
So till our next regular scheduled board meeting, because we do have a couple budget meetings that I don't think we need to address that at these.
I'm the one that, as I say, I'm falling on my sword, so if you make me come to a meeting I don't really want to come to, I'll come and I won't whine and complain.
You think, but a month, at our next regular scheduled
Yes.
meeting
yes.
is
I
enough,
just
is
need to
enough
look
time?
at- I just need to look at
Okay.
the document, I don't have it, and I did not request a copy of it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, moving into new business, our millage approval for our fiscal year 24-25. They are listed here. As you can see, our Headley rollback has rolled back. If we look, you can see tables 4 and 5. Nope, 5 and 7. 5 is what last year was, so starting at operating, last year we were at 10.3285. That's my birthday, just for fun. I mean, I remember that one.
October 32nd?
I mean, how,
Awesome.
March 2nd, 85. I mean, what's the randomness that 3285?
Oh, 3-2.
Oh,
We
I
were
was
looking
thinking
at 10-3-2.
October.
Sorry. And then it's moving to rolling back. Squirrel, sorry. 10.2076. And with our rubbish, we were at 10.0656, rolling back to 2.0414. Highway, 1.5, rolling back to 1.4002. Cemetery was at 0.75. Nope, that's where it started. I apologize. 0.7259. We are at 0.7174. Our street improvement, it's not at 1, it rolled 1.6221.
Is that the not available?
I think it's got to remain the same.
If you look in 10, it says to be levied July 1. And it matches the rest of them. And then we also have for DDA, the 1.6667.
So, one thing that has been brought up is with the cemetery millage. I know we currently just did the major project out there, and the amount of money we're capturing from that, is that still needed to be at that level? I know that was one of the major things for instituting that, was to fund the road repair and do all that. Do we currently can we eliminate that or reduce that at this point? If that project's been done, do we need to continue to capture that amount of money?
I couldn't answer that at this moment with an actual educated answer. That's an accounting, and we could address at our budget meeting. But I don't know. Can we hold off on levying? I wouldn't assume that our accounting, because we did roll back our rubbish even more, because we have the up to
Yeah.
and the capture on that, even having extra in reserve for downtown garbage and starting to think to the future of building corrals and having extra in there to start accruing. That one's still held back, and if that was the way accounting was thinking, I feel like they would have mentioned it, but
For the,
I can't
not, I'm rubbish, just the cemetery.
I understand that, and I'm saying if they addressed it with us regarding
I
rubbish,
see
I
what
think
you're
they would
saying.
have addressed it with cemetery, but given that this is just
Talk
a
about that at the
question, I
next
don't have
budget
an answer.
meeting. Yeah, because I'd like to know what currently we need then for out there. If it's major projects done, do we look at rolling that back? And if and when we need it again, we can
Yeah.
reassess that then.
Or if we wait to find out if I know that retention pond was a question about expansion, so if that's off the table and you can't expand back there, then maybe you don't need that significant amount of funds. But I don't know, it'd probably be a good question for the cemetery board, but I see where, yeah, because it is a significant amount of money being captured.
Yeah.
And the big project is done. so-
Well, and this is again, and not quite, don't have the answer myself, but when you levy a mill and you have we can go up to that, does not necessarily mean we have to do that, or,
Correct. And one thing you may want to consider in deciding what to do with that, you were able as a board to levy that millage without a vote because it had never been. Thank you. Because it had not been levied before. So Headley had applied, but it only applied prospectively. So to Ms. Poznanski's point, yes, you don't have to levy as much as authorized. If you did away with it and then wanted to reinstate it, it would have to be a voted millage because now you've had a millage for it and Headley controls and you can't implement one or raise it without a vote of the people. So
So we
that's.
could,
We can levy
Right.
under what we are
We could go
passing right
down.
now.
You
We
can.
can levy at what's
Save some.
needed. This just allows us to, so for instance, the best one is Bruce with their fire and ALS. They have open 10 mills, but they only levy at 5.5 or capture what is actually needed for that year with the ability to move when they need to. It's a similar,
yeah, not like that.
well,
So I guess for the next budget meeting, is there a way to get records, since this has been put into place, since we started capturing this on accounts receivable, payable, what it's costing us to operate the cemetery currently, so that we can look at and make possible adjustments to this?
yeah, accounting would have those answers, be able to pull those.
So, do we need to motion that, or can I just request that for the next meeting? Is that-
If you would send it all in email, so nothing gets lost of what you would specifically like to see.
Can I drop a handwritten letter off?
Sure, that too.
Perfect, because I still can't get into the email.
Okay.
Okay.
So where are we at with these? We're gonna make a motion?
When do we have to have this done by?
It's preferred, I'm speaking on behalf of the village treasurer right now, it'd be preferred by June 1st, so we can create the tax bills and send them out by the legal drop date of July 1st. They have to be available by law.
Well, we really don't have a lot of choice here, do we?
I was just hoping if we got the cemetery information soon enough, we could roll that back first, because we're looking at a lot of other expenses that I don't want to have to pass on to the residents, but if we do, at least if we could roll this back.
But for clarification, though, passing these doesn't mean that we have to send it out at that amount. This means up to.
Yeah, that's why I was asking, what's our cutoff date, like, that we would.
For the official
Yeah,
levy?
Yeah,
Got it.
that we need to know to send out.
Do you know that? I don't know
I
that.
think it's July 1st, because you have to have your operating millage, your levies in place to fund your budget. And so you couldn't, you have to have your budget done by July 1st and submitted. You can't have your budget without supporting, without having the mills that support it. So I would say no later than July 1st. You can do it anytime in between, as far as I know. I
Okay.
don't, unless the state of Michigan requires something sooner, I was
They do
looking
not.
No.
at the tax form, and it doesn't appear to,
All I see is
This one
submitted
says
on or
September
before September
30th.
30th, yeah.
yeah, 2024, but that may be for the submission of the form, but you have to adopt your millage rates or approve your millage rates by the time you adopt your budget. Usually, well, I shouldn't say usually, I'll take that back. You can do them at the same time.
So we can have that information in time for our budget meetings to make a decision then.
On June 3rd.
And that'll be in enough time for this, correct?
I don't know, is it enough time? Do you have to host another public hearing? Or is,
No,
if they don't actually approve these tonight?
no, we've already had the public hearing for tonight.
Yeah.
No,
As
we
long
can-
as
we
we
can
state
approve
when we're
this.
gonna do it.
Oh,
right?
you're just saying you want the, yeah, you
Yeah,
can have
we
the
approve
information
it
by
tonight,
then.
And then when we do our budget, we
Oh.
can look at whether we need that much levy.
I don't even think we need to approve with the public hearing. Like you said, it's already happened. As long as we make a motion tonight to table this until the next date and time at our budget
Dude,
meeting.
you're saying two different things here. I'm not quite sure
Yeah, she's saying we can approve, I'm saying we don't even have to approve it tonight. If we're not, if we're gonna change it June 3rd, why don't we just wait till June 3rd?
Well, wouldn't we have to have a public hearing on June
No,
3rd?
we've already had the public hearing tonight. As long as it's made clear in tonight's meeting that that this will be resolved on the next date.
Gotcha.
Is that correct, Mark?
Yes, you should not have to have another public hearing, and I would counsel against adopting these rates if you're not sure they are going to be your rates. You have to be stating the obvious, you have to be concerned about the deadline, the timeframe within which they do have to be approved. But you don't have to approve them tonight. And with respect to the public hearing, you just have to have the public hearing before you adopt the millage rate, so that people can come and speak. You afforded the public that opportunity. You followed the statute in that regard. You do say that the meeting to take action on the millage rates will follow the public hearing. So you have said in your notice that you're going to do this tonight. And I tend to err on the side of too much information as opposed to not enough. And so given, I don't want to denigrate anybody's duties or responsibilities, but the notice would seem to be pretty simply and straightforwardly prepared. And so if you're not going to adopt the millages tonight, I would recommend that you have another public hearing. Not because you haven't had one, you have. You've fulfilled your responsibility. But the notice says, following the public hearing, the meeting to take action on the millage rates will follow the public hearing. I guess your action is to postpone that, so that would be okay. But it has to just be clear. People need to know what's being done and when it's being done.
My only hesitation is we've had budget meetings where we don't have quorum, and we cannot have this go. You realize if we don't pass these, we will not be able to capture funds for a whole year. Okay, just as long as we're all on the same page of
So-
understanding.
Just so you know, personally, I don't like taking anything away from the cemetery.
I don't think it's a matter of taking away.
Well, they
There's a
always have things
potential
coming
that-
up.
No, there's a potential that it's significantly overfunded. And so if it is, then if we can give the residents $50 to $100 tax break
What
and
is
not
it-
have it significantly overfunded.
What's leading you, give us some more background into potential of overfunded. I'm not,
All you gotta do is do the math of how much everybody has put in and how many years it's been building. The roads are the only major project we've had, and that's done. So now you're gonna be collecting, $100,000 a year, $200,000 a year for every year, and what's your next big project? In 3 or 4 years, you're gonna have $1 million sitting there for what?
right, and cemetery can only be spent in the cemetery.
Right.
So it's just a lot of money.
Right.
And maybe the information we obtained June 3rd justifies leaving it here, but
Yeah.
it just seems like quite a bit of
Yeah.
money that's not being spent.
I mean, I've looked at
Just
the
sitting there.
operating bills, the rubbish bills, all these other bills. I've not had an opportunity to, other than do my own math, really know about the cemetery. So if I need to vote on something, I want to know what it is to feel confident. So I'm okay if we want to postpone this until the budget meeting. I'm also okay if we're advised that, we can pass this tonight and not levy the entire thing if we find it not necessary. Either way, I just think it's something I would like to look at, because it is a significant amount of money, and if we can't expand there or anywhere else, then, it would be nice, because we've got a lot of expenses coming up for the residents, and I'm trying to tighten that belt, like I said last time.
Right.
That's all.
Well,
The
and just,
cemetery board does have a list of projects that they are hoping to accomplish. They did a 2 to 5 year projection. We do have a cemetery board member here, Sandra Brooks. The next item was the columbariums as part of the expansion.
Right.
So I
And
guess
I-
we could see all that at the June 3rd meeting, we can move forward.
Well, and they do discuss it in the meeting minutes that you guys receive copies of, and all the expenses that they approve, and for projects going forward, those are part of meeting minutes over the last year.
So it should be pretty easy to get them together then? All the stuff for,
Well, I mean, there's items being discussed within the meeting minutes that would explain what they are looking forward to.
yeah, just looking for the breakdown.
Yeah, because the
Just like we
meeting
see
didn't have
everything
the
else.
breakdown.
Well, we have a basic budget. You do see their
Yeah,
line
you
item
see-
budget and the budget each month.
All the
Yeah.
operating costs, all the salaries, and all the items
Yeah.
in your budget to actuals monthly,
Yep.
and the revenues of lot purchases and burial funds.
Yeah,
And the capital improvement budget's also in
yeah.
there.
And,
So my sentiments still stand, because columbarium can be very expensive,
yeah, but people buy them, so that's gonna pay
right,
for
but it has
itself.
to be built.
Yeah.
Okay, can we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to take action on the 2024 tax rates to postpone until the June 3rd budget meeting, with the hope that we are provided with the cemetery expenses, accounts receivable payable, future plans and projects to justify the millage rate.
Did you also want to see the DDA?
I think we get the DDA budget, do we not?
Right, you will, and just like you'll get the cemetery one. I'm just asking, because you're going to need to levy the DDA also. Did you want more information just than the general budget?
That's possible. I would appreciate it, yeah.
Yeah. We just can't go any farther, so I don't want us to get there and then have more questions at the table. We don't have time to continue to play around here. Not that we're playing around.
No,
Probably bad choice of
I'm
words.
personally good with the DDA. I've seen their budgets, I've seen the breakdown, and they utilize their funds as needed.
Okay.
That's the motion.
Motion by Parker.
Support.
We have support by Rousseau.
Can you repeat the motion, please? Is it just to table it until?
To take action on the 2024 tax rate until the June 3rd budget meeting, with being provided the breakdown of the cemetery budget, accounts receivable payable, since the millage rate has been acquired
Thank you.
or put in place, however we gotta word it. I'm gonna change it, sports so again.
Would you call the roll, please?
Parker,
Yes.
Rousseau,
Yes.
Poznanski,
Yes.
sorry, Care,
Yes.
Edwards,
Yes.
Bartholomew.
No.
Motion carries 5-1. Okay, moving into our proposed updated water sewer rates. If we wanted to, our analytics, Mr. John Kasor, did offer, I could get him on the phone if we would like to discuss here with him. Or if there was enough, I asked him to at least, there's a whole page breakdown and explanation.
Yeah, I mean, I think-
If that's good enough, or if you would like to get him on the phone.
Where is it? Oh, there it is. I knew I had it. No, I think this is great information provided. Kind of explained it all out there for the increased cost.
Yes, and we have the complete tables, of which we would approve all the tables being presented here. Essentially for residential, I made a cheat sheet in here that I keep in the village, that I've created. There was a draft one, that is what the current rates are, and then current and then draft. This is a cheat sheet I just keep around for, these are generally the most often asked. So with our ready to serve for the residential, those actually go down a bit by it's like 50 cents. Where we see the difference is in your water usage. So what was $3.90 per 1,000 gallons is now $4.25. So it will be more heavily rated on how much you use, which equates to, what is it, 9%? 9% increase?
Oh, it's a
Yep.
total of 9? I must have missed that. I thought
Where
It is,
did I
did the
see it?
math.
On the other side of the village, with the Great Lakes Water, you see theirs adjusted, theirs going down by 29%,
Oh, wow. I guess when I read that.
but their usage is different. If you see, so what used to cost them $4.80 per 1,000 gallons is now $6.18. So again, more heavily on what you use. dispersing that there. And then also that, he explains here, that was taken into account. We're now realizing and seeing the trend with Ford leaving. With our Great Lakes contract that we were able to negotiate, that is how theirs is adjusted by that percent. Two separate water systems, yet same sewer. However, industrial is heavier on the sewer when it comes to chemicals. So,
So this was off then, the type. I did not do the math to that breakdown.
One
so
went
that-
up 9%, but in the end, 3% is the change.
Okay, because that's what I read. It said the
Yeah.
typical resident customer will see an increase in their combined water and sewer bill just under 3%.
right, well, because the ready to serve went down just a titch. Yeah, this is why I asked him to do this, because my explanation is going to be not as professional in the area as he is.
Well, I'd make a motion to pass the proposed water and sewer rate updates as presented.
All the tables and as included.
Yep. Support.
We have a motion by Edwards, support by Bartholomew. Could you call the roll, please?
Edwards?
Yes.
Bartholomew?
Yes.
Care?
Yes.
Russo?
Yes.
Poznanski?
Yes.
Parker?
No.
Motion carries 5-1.
Okay, moving into our third quarter budget amendments. Quite the extensive explanation. Do we have any discussion?
I have a,
Unless you want me to walk through it and read it all, I mean.
no.
No, I assume these have all been taken care of by the accountant.
Yes, as appropriately. Go ahead.
So it's not a discussion, but I want to understand better. On the front page of her description, under Village Hall and Grounds, the professional services for accounting and audit, she says, look at note 2 to explain the change, due to additional accounting assistance required. So then I go to note 2, and I read that explanation. And is it my understanding, or is this a correct understanding, that billing, bookkeeping, and admin charges are being added to certain departments to more specifically break out clerk and accounting fees and bill them to each department as appropriate? Is that what that's happening there?
I'll give you the. I do know that we are asking for more work to be done specifically when it comes to our contract with Bruce Township, which does take more time specifically there, breaking out the percent that is their cost versus ours.
For who? Bruce Township?
Bruce Township with our sewer. So that in order to recuperate those funds, we have to break things out more. I don't know if that's what this is addressing. This isn't something that I asked them about, or do you know, Catherine?
I think she has her note 2 back here, but I think we explained it, how they explained it too. We would probably have to reach out to them for better clarification than what they presented in here then.
So we're not sure.
Other than the note, no.
Did
I
anyone
know there's
else?
other times like the DDA, or if the DPW is in a different section, like you have to pull that out and it gets applied to that specific. So there's more work to be done depending on where they work at. You have to then pull out hours or like the planning, you know.
Right.
That's the only thing that's coming to my mind in here.
Yeah, that's what I was thought she was trying to get at, but I wasn't sure, because but it says billing, bookkeeping, and admin. So I guess it's not clear. If we could get an answer to,
Yeah, is even like, under the village clerk talks about payroll-related items, line items increased for expected activity through the end of the fiscal year. Is that also then Plant Moran, or is that payroll on our end?
payroll-related line items increased slightly.
Line
If I
items.
had to guess, that would be the hire of a new part-time training for our phase-out there.
Will Plant Moran be at our June 3rd meeting?
Mm-hmm.
Can this be tabled till then?
Sure.
Otherwise, we're going to sit here and stare at it, go nowhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You can always put
The time's
questions
running
to me or to the accountants before, or I can get answers for the council before. We don't have to wait till we sit at the table.
Oh.
Definitely open.
Great, thank
And
you.
they are open too. I mean,
Do they bill us every time we ask a question?
I don't know. Not me, but maybe you? I don't know.
I don't know.
That's a question.
So text Megan the question.
I know, it's a.
I could forward an email.
Have you seen their bill?
Yeah, the bills are.
All right, thanks for that, and then. Yep, okay.
I guess I turned it off. Our draft fund balance policy, which is now I reworded to ordinance. I tried my best. This is the same document you saw. Tried to make clear any edits, just changing out a few words. Bringing it back for you guys to look at.
So this has been edited, can I beat it up a little bit?
Yes.
Just, so on the first highlight, just the way that's worded, to be classified as committed, formal action shall be taken by resolution no later than the village board prior to June 30th. I guess it just doesn't,
Village board meeting? Is that what you're trying to, maybe?
it's by resolution no later than the village board prior, should that say by the village board?
To the village.
By the
Yeah.
village board, village board prior to June 30th? By resolution no later than,
What are you trying to clarify? That it's a village board meeting?
no,
What
just,
are you
just
trying
the
to
way,
clarify?
later than the, just that, no later than the village board. I guess it's just the way I read it.
Village board meeting, I would assume it's trying to say. And formal action shall be taken, not take.
Right.
That's just a typo, but.
Yep.
It's more just, we're
Yeah.
getting
It's
here.
just little,
Is this the?
Yeah.
Picky little things,
Yeah.
English
Yeah,
grammar.
but is that intent good? The intent
Yes.
there
Yeah.
of taking it from formal action, I wanted it more, shall is not a, that is what is the word? It's not
Shall's
submissive.
mandatory.
Mandatory, thank you. Putting it more into that, to that realm.
By resolution, by the village board, no later than the June 30th board meeting. Yeah, just.
Yeah, the
switch
I like
that
the
around a little
intent.
bit.
With just the clarification that you're specifically trying to point out meeting, right?
Yeah, and just the wording of it, I guess, yeah, by the village,
Okay.
yeah. By the village board, yeah, that's fine.
Okay, on the second page, highlighted some, underlined, again, putting in all the shells. Specifically wanted you guys to look at that whole sentence. Is this something we would like in here? And then at the end, did we want to put a requirement here of a majority vote to pass?
That was to pass for, yeah, yeah. I'm sorry, I'm talking out loud as I think.
Well, let me read it. In order to, committing fund balance. In order to commit fund balance, the village board, as the highest level of decision-making authority, shall pass a resolution to commit funds for a specific purpose. These funds shall be fully expended for their committed purpose. To make committed funds uncommitted, a new resolution shall be passed by the board. Action shall be taken before the last day of the fiscal year to commit funds for that year. I didn't know if we wanted to put a voting requirement or is just majority vote to uncommit. How you guys where you wanted to go on that.
So I guess if we, you would have to separate, right? Are we voting by majority to make them committed or to make them uncommitted?
I don't know. It's which,
Don't we
Or
always
and
have to have a majority vote?
well, you do have to have majority, but you don't have to have a,
You're talking
Super
like a
Super,
two-thirds,
yes.
like a two-thirds, which would be more than,
I think just a majority vote would be fine.
yeah.
I don't see, I understand the reasoning to maybe go to a two-thirds at that point, because you're talking about a lot of money.
Or for instance, one year we say we're going to commit these funds to a certain thing, and then we start moving that way, and maybe we have an election and the board, and things change, and then someone comes in and it's unfunded, but we already moved forward and spent money towards something.
Yeah. So
I
I'd say to
just
make
don't
them
know how you
uncommitted.
want to, because this isn't just about here and now.
I would say to make them uncommitted would be a two-thirds. If you've already got them committed, established, then two-thirds, yeah.
That's fine.
Okay, just for the uncommitted, though.
Yeah.
Of members present or of members of the board? Very different.
Members of the board.
I would say members of the board, for
Okay.
sure.
Okay, and then a little bit farther down. Again, another shall, and then there was the board will consider using unrestricted. I have shall assign unrestricted, just some verbiage. As long as that meets with your intent. Is there anything else you would want added, adjusted?
So if we're gonna just if we're gonna require the two-thirds to make them unrestricted, then down here it's saying we shall assign unrestricted funds. Is that, or we're assuming they're already unrestricted at that point? Okay, I'm just, so we don't have to have a two-thirds vote unrestricted if they're already unrestricted. Makes sense?
It's just once we commit them.
Yeah.
Okay, I can take it back, make adjustments to this. I asked Mark to put it in actual ordinance form.
I can. One thing, and whenever you're ready to do that, certainly I will, but in that regard, then I have a question that I'll ask the board instead of one person. When it says, going back to that highlighted committing fund balance, that highlighted area, and it says, action shall be taken before the last day of the fiscal year to commit funds for that year. So you're looking backward, you're not looking prospectively, and I'm asking a question, I'm not making a statement. It appears to me that if it has to be done by, using current year as an example, if it has to be done by June 30th of 2024, are you talking about the year just concluded, or are you talking about the fiscal year 2024, 2025?
I see, so by saying that year, you're talking about the current year when actually we
Well, I'm
should be
asking a
talking
question.
about,
I'm-
we should be talking about
Yeah.
the next year.
Well, I don't know. I'm asking a question of you, which
Yeah.
you don't have to answer. I don't mean to ambush you with it, but if I'm gonna wordsmith this, I want to make sure I do it the way you want it done.
Yeah, I would assume the intent is the upcoming fiscal year.
For the upcoming, yes.
Yeah, and I would, as looking at that a little further, should this be done and finalized whenever we finalize the budget?
So then you could say shall be taken before the last day for the approval of the fiscal, or last day for the approval of the budget for that fiscal year, or for the ensuing fiscal year. And again, I'm not trying to give you
no,
the
it makes
answer, I
complete
just
sense.
want to know what the answer is. If you're looking back or if you're looking forward.
Yeah, forward.
My assumption, which is a great word you love, Mark, assumption, would be that this is done in conjunction with the budget.
Okay, so it would be prospective, you'd be
Is
looking
that-
forward.
I'm not
Okay.
trying to Is that what your intent would be?
Well, yeah,
there?
because you have to build it going forward. So if you're going to unrestrict something, you're making it available for your budget coming up.
So the budget is due by June 30th, correct?
Right. Correct. That's end of, July 1 is start.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, if there's nothing else or anything anyone wants added? Okay. I will bring that back in June. Okay. Yes. Long night of ordinances. Okay, moving into our ethics ordinance proposal. What, did I miss
Do
something?
you know, you think we're gonna need to extend?
We can see when we get there.
Okay.
We only got three left.
Okay.
Ethics ordinance. This is something that I know I brought up as a trustee in the past. I had it on my agenda as president, things getting out of, just getting into things and falling off the table. And then this was brought to a head this month, essentially. We had a couple things happen in the office of which brought it back to mind that, you know what, this is why we need an ethics ordinance. So we had a couple things happening. One had to do with our cemetery board. The cemetery board needs to hire a part-time staff. In doing so, they set a rate for pay, and then that was that. There was no motion to be made of how the hiring was going to happen. Eventually, I find out that one of the board members' husbands was hired for the position. So, and then speaking with the clerk, I asked her, first of all, is this true? I don't know it for a fact, and it was true. I asked if the job was posted at all, and it was not posted. I asked, how did this come about if the job wasn't posted? And it was that, it was a public meeting, and it was discussed at a public meeting, but this person was not there at that meeting. So it would be my assumption that in being married to a board member, there was discussion. Apparently, the person came into the office, asked if we were hiring, and the clerk said yes and hired him. Upon learning all this information, I asked the clerk to go end that relationship. That, to me, us here, being bosses, do not hire family members. And for that cemetery board, for any of our boards, I would think that that would also be the case. However, the other part of this is also compounded by the fact that it wasn't advertised, that nobody had, that the whole village or anybody really didn't have the ability to apply for the position. So that unless you were at that meeting or knew somebody that was at that meeting, or you waited till the minutes were and you actually looked at the minutes down the road, you didn't know that there was a position being hired for. And always looking out for the best of the village. Good gracious, we don't need any more lawsuits. Trying to stay away from any, even just the look of possible nepotism. I understand that it wasn't these board members that hired, but that was also an issue, that the village clerk does not have the authority to hire on behalf of the cemetery board, and the cemetery board did not make a motion to give the clerk that right. So there was also a stepping out of bounds there. However, I will say that was based off of past practice and assumptions of the past. Now that that's been clear and the cemetery board understands that the power is in their hands to hire, it has been posted. There have been 3 applicants. The applicant of the family member of the board member, I have stated, can apply. There is no reason that they can't apply, can't be interviewed by the board. If the family member on the board recused themselves from voting and the board wanted to hire, there is that option. But at least it was done in the open, and everybody had the chance to apply for the job. The other thing that came up this month, unfortunately, was our village clerk took it upon herself to sign a contract with another lawyer putting village funds at stake, saying that the contract would be fulfilled by the Village of Romeo. Again, this was done unbeknownst to me. Eventually, in conversation, I did find out, let the clerk know that that was, we had had a conversation at the beginning of the year. I had spoken with the clerk, letting her know that if she ever needs any extra help, if things are falling behind, if she's overwhelmed, there's too much on her plate, we are all there to help and support each other. Tried my best since coming in the door to open lines of communication. I think we do a decent job of communicating, and we clearly work together. Things get done. However, there seems things like this just continue to pop up, and I find myself having to do more work in trying to ensure that our clerk is doing her work. That is where I don't know when or how I would have ever found out about her signing us, the village, onto a contract. I was told that it was under her spending threshold. I don't find that that excuse justifiable in any way, as we have yet to even see a bill. Signed on at $250 an hour. How much time is it going to take? The issue at hand that she decided needed to be looked into, again, didn't run it by the CEO. Do we actually need to look into this? Just things that need to be tended to. So therefore, we have our ethics ordinance discussion. I put in here for you the Michigan Municipal League. I did contact them, just so we're all aware, and asked to make reproductions of the ethics manual. I thought that was the proper thing to do. So you have a whole book here, essentially, of what should be included in an ethics ordinance. And then I also went on and found sample ordinances. Washington Township recently did an ethics ordinance, so theirs is in here. Also, to go a step further, I do believe we should have an ethics board. I know we have a lot of boards, and I know that we have a lot of subcommittees. However, an ethics board specifically, should an ethics violation or an ethics violation be alleged, this board then looks through the materials and they make the decision on it. It is not a council political decision. So I do believe if we do an ethics ordinance, I would like us to see an ethics board, probably 3 people. It doesn't have to be a lot. Hopefully, they're never called on.
Is an ethics board also something that was outlined in the MML handbook or other?
Yep, yeah, there's the other ones that are in here, a couple of them do have a board. So how does the council's feel towards an ethics ordinance here?
I'm feeling very strongly, and I guess I'm more concerned about what else you just mentioned, and totally caught me off guard with this.
I did let the clerk know that the village will not be on the hook for those funds, and that as they, should the invoices roll into the village, she will herself be responsible for those funds. I did reach out to this lawyer. I have yet to receive a phone call back. However, this lawyer reached out to Mr. Clark. Mr. Clark called her back and got her voicemail, and has anything else transpired since?
No, she has not returned my call.
Okay, so that's where we're at.
I guess one of the concerning parts, is and correct me if I'm wrong in representing what you said, was you said you wouldn't have found this out unless you reached out and was trying to help and got involved with something. You would have not even known this was happening. So then I would question what else has happened. And as stewards of the village, do we need to look at some type of audit since this has went into place? Because since she's been elected, I mean, if this is something that's been hidden, are we not responsible to make sure that the village funds have been being spent correctly and not unethically or illegally, for that matter? If we're hiring, I mean, that's a professional service. I mean, regardless if it's under a threshold, professional services fall into one of our policies. So I would argue that we would conduct an audit, a forensic audit, since her term in office.
I can't say I would disagree. However, I know that's not cheap. So we can get prices on it.
Why was the lawyer hired?
Pardon me?
Why was the lawyer hired?
Why did you hire the lawyer?
I had some questions from my payroll and benefits coordinator that we were further looking into.
Mr. Clark, are you qualified to answer payroll type questions?
Well, I'd first have to know what the question is. I'm not a CPA, I'm not a bookkeeper, and so I don't mean to dodge your question, but the answer is I don't know until I know what the question is.
Okay, let me rephrase my question. Were you approached by the village clerk in an attempt to get some questions answered?
I was not.
Okay, thank you.
And with the amount of money we pay Plant Moran to handle accounting, I would assume they would have some knowledge of accounting and funds.
Are these funds within our budget?
It's a professional service, regardless.
Yeah, but if the clerk's office needs a professional service,
There's a policy in place for hiring professional
the clerk's office should be
services.
able to get professional service.
Hire a lawyer on behalf of the village without saying anything to anyone?
Well, on behalf of the clerk's office, yes.
Spending village funds.
If it's within our budget.
But it's outside our policy. I can't rephrase it, and I wasn't prepared to even talk about anything, but I know the.
No, I'm not
purchase-
either,
But
but I'm just.
there's a professional service aspect of our purchase policy. Am I wrong, or that would require it to go out?
I don't know of one offhand,
There are
but-
multiple, there's a few different sections
Yeah.
with different amounts.
So if you're gonna hire that's gotta go out, would be my
Well,
understanding.
and not only that, bringing specifically the president office into consideration, working together, that it would need to be something that would need to be done behind my back, essentially.
I still think it's just alarming. The funds are being misused and not brought to anyone's attention. There was a hiring done, we'll say at least unethically. I don't know, maybe I stand alone on this, but that to me is alarming.
No, you don't stand alone, I'm just processing.
Yeah, this,
Well, specifically with the ethics ordinance.
yeah.
So it's something that we have an appetite for. Did you look through any of them? What are we wanting included? How, is there one that you prefer over another that I can start aiming towards?
I did, and to me, the first one I went to was the municipal league, because I would say that, it's vetted. It kind of looks at. So I did flip through that one, and there was a lot of things I liked about it, and it included things, and
It kind of walks you through, definitions and doing
Yeah.
you're getting all the proper things in there.
yeah. I mean, it was a little thick, but it was thorough, and so, there were bits and pieces of other ones that I liked. And questions I had about them, obviously you see in my yellow. So I didn't come to an exact conclusion for myself, other than I think it's necessary. I liked the idea of it. I want to support it. I wanted to see how ours would come out. If you were just proposing, just this handbook.
Well, that's the
or-
handbook of how to build one, really.
Yeah.
So
Well,
no,
that's
that was
those
for,
guidelines.
yeah,
Yeah.
that is for your information on how to build
Yeah.
one. I mean, I can do a shot in the dark and start compiling, but I feel like then we all just come rip apart and redo. So if you could give me some direction before I go back, I'd,
Would you?
if you wanted to cut and paste, email things
That's what I was just
or
gonna say.
some.
Would you be
or
open
have a-
to
you
me
can
highlighting
come into the
things that I
office.
liked
Yeah.
and just scan and email it to you? Would
Sure.
that be a helpful start?
Anybody for that matter.
Would a typical ethics board be solely comprised of village council members, or would you have an outside, maybe,
My thought would
opinion or
be-
authority to
My
the
thought would
board?
be residents.
Yeah, okay.
Is that what you-
And would that be an appointed position. I mean, maybe there's a more of a professional who's well-versed in ethics that I mean, not to hire people, that's not exactly what we're looking to do, spend more money, but it sounds like, again, I'm not being picky towards you, but to have you specifically choose someone board approved, that's just a resident with no maybe proper qualifications on this topic, or is someone who maybe might not be as well versed in this, it seems like something that kind of needs to be completely outside of either, it can be under our direction, but I think it needs to be someone completely removed from the village itself.
I would agree.
An ethics board, I don't,
So-
in my mind, wouldn't be made up of people that have power,
Right.
at least directly at a council
So you're saying
level.
not residents?
I don't think residents or board members, I mean, it could be overseen by us, but I think it should be independent.
So similar to the building inspector, I forgot what the exact term was that we put into place to look at some issues with permitting.
Oh, the review board?
The review board, I'm sorry, I forgot the
Yeah.
term. With the review board that was outside inspectors, outside the village, to get an outside perspective.
I like the idea of an ethics board. I think it definitely needs a better deep dive than just copying or mirroring in other entities and going from there. Not saying that's what you were gonna do, but it definitely needs a roll up the sleeves
Well,
and deep dive.
essentially,
And that's a lot to ask you
what
to
are
do on
we-
your own.
What are we getting at? What are you getting, what is your aim with?
Yeah, so,
with
I mean, just, so I
the
get, I
intent?
get where you're going with someone outside the village, but then are we looking at paying these people, right? Because now you're talking about asking someone outside of the village, another resident, business owner, another community member to come in and review a certain issue, right? It's probably not a board that's gonna meet all the time, it's gonna be from
As
time to
needed,
time
or-
as needed. So now, are we paying these people to come in? And while I understand the purpose of an outside, do you not want people here in the village that it's involving their tax dollars and their money comprised of, that are gonna take a look at the issues that are happening within their own village?
Yeah.
Potential issues.
Yeah, that's a good idea. It's healthy conversation.
Yeah.
I can see the appeal to having both. I think it should be someone removed from politics
So I guess if
on
we
the
look at
board.
like the inspectors and the way that went, it got to a point where our inspector was having said issues and couldn't get resolved. So maybe if our ethics board gets to a point where they can't get to resolve, then we look at phase 2 or step 3 or 4, where it does go outside to, but then is that then arbitration? or-
I think you
don't
could
know.
have a combination. You could have a resident, you could have a professional, and then,
Yeah.
one other.
And if you build your ordinance as the best that you can, being very clear, there shouldn't have to be that much of a
Right.
gray area in any
Correct.
spot, right?
Right.
If we are very thorough in
Yeah.
our decisions.
This is a very big undertaking to ask you to do on your lonesome. How do you feel the best way to go about drafting the ordinances? Do you want to, I know we're kind of subcommittee crazy, but is that something you're looking to do?
I'll take help.
I can help.
I'll help as well.
Okay. If we want to create a subcommittee for creation of our ethics ordinance,
I'll make a motion to create an ethics ordinance subcommittee consisting of trustee Rousseau, President Poznanski, and trustee Kerr.
Support.
okay, motion by Parker, support by Edwards.
One we're not on, Nate, or Matt.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Okay, I guess we'll just start there.
We could take it in
Start-
chunks, we don't
yeah,
have to do the whole
start.
handbook, back to front to back.
So outside of that, Madam President, is there anything else that we need to address? Because some of the issues I heard, although sound, like they would fit under the ethics, might go a little bit deeper, or,
No literal issues at the moment. I mean, that was to date.
Could you look into obtaining numbers for a forensic audit?
I can ask.
Thank you.
yeah, I'm not sure it's just forensics, but.
Is there any specific account, or you're asking?
I would say the village budget, since the clerk's original election.
Well, for instance, you generally ask for a specific area. So when I came in and I asked how the sewer contract was being done, and we found that we were underbilling Bruce Township for the last 4 years, that's where that money came in. And then I asked, okay, well, how about the recording contract? And that's where it was discovered, the $14,000 overpayment to Mitt TV. So is there, you just want to look all of it, or is there like a specific?
The clerk, treasurer, village hall and grounds is everything that comes out of the office.
And cemetery, I would like to see
And cemetery.
cemetery.
Now you're looking for like line items to review, or?
At this point, if you found it by chance, who knows where or what could have been happening. So I would just say complete forensic audit of those accounts.
Do we have to, I know it's a lot of material, but are we able just to compile those documents and include it in a packet so we're able to review those?
Are you
And at least,
forensic auditor?
well, no, but we could see her line items and transactions, at least then we can go from there to see if there's things that are alarming, we can go a step further, but.
I just want to see a general idea on what it would cost to have it done at this point.
Specifically these accounts.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4 accounts. Okay. Headley override discussion. Wanted to make it clear that this is language that is prepared. This does not mean it is happening. This is getting us ready should the council decide to pull the trigger, as this language needs to be prepared by August, or turned in by August if we're going to make it on the November ballot. So this is what the language would look like. I know we had discussion at our budget meeting. I included same information so that you guys could see, again, what the Headley rollback would do for us, specifically trying to cover the cost of our ALS contract. And at some point, make a decision. So you have the ability to make that decision tonight if you wanted.
Well, don't we have to go through the budget meetings to be able to know if we need to do this?
We already know that the fire contract has gone up
Well, that's true.
significantly,
Yes.
and and that's what these numbers and tables show us, that over time, there will not be enough. And then also with the roads,
Okay.
that discussion was had. I'm sorry, Matt, you weren't at the budget meeting, so you didn't hear that. The rest of us did, I apologize. So that's where the decision was presented of the choices we had. Headley rollback, and also did we want to institute the 2 additional mills, was it 2 or 2.5? For roads. Nolan, you were at the road, you see what we're going to need to be
Yeah.
moving into in the care of, if the village residents are going to foot $10 million project, we can't just then do nothing. We need to have money to adequately maintain and get the longest life out of these roads possible.
Correct. And while it may be obvious to some, the biggest thing I took away from that meeting that was emphasized is it's always ongoing. It's like our budget. It's a living process that never ends. The roads will never be done, and that's just the reality of it. The best thing we can do is to, as soon as we do a road, we have to set in place a plan that immediately starts assessing when we start filling cracks and when we start addressing those issues. So that's, at least for me, that was the coolest and most informational thing, was the roads are never done. That's just the reality of it. Probably same for the sidewalks and same for everything else.
Yeah, it's like the moment you drive your new car off the lot. It's not new anymore, and, yeah, anyways.
So I know I was not there, so to ask questions after the fact is a little cumbersome. I get it, but information and studies, or studying I've done on the roads, even when we looked at putting it out for bond on the last administration, everything I see, regardless of how much money you dump into them, after you've put in new, your life expectancy does not expand, right? And everyone says 15 to 20 years is the normal life expectancy of a road. We're currently, while some are getting worse than others, heavier traveled, I think we're at 28 years on the roads
Right.
right now. So how much more money do we want to dump into them throughout besides basic crack filling and stuff, which I don't know if we still have that capability. I'm just looking for someone else, Al, not you. I'm sorry. In the village, I mean, how much do we really want to put aside to that opposed to capturing money into a fund just to redo them?
So there was.
You should have been at the presentation.
There was really cool data at the presentation.
You can watch it, though, it was recorded.
Yeah, I will. I just, I didn't get it. but
He
yeah,
addresses it well.
work is
Yeah,
work.
he addresses it well, and there's even some like specific examples and graphs that show that if you start, not even aggressively, but if you start maintaining those roads year one after they're completed, you can extend the life from 15 to up to 30 years of quality life of that road, and over time, it's still cheaper than paving it, year 15, repave it, and you just keep doing that process. It's cheaper in the long run to
Is it
do that.
chip seal? New to me, but they said that they're finding in communities, if you do that, and it's hard to, you really have to educate the community, because they're like, well, you just made the road, why are we all of a sudden redoing it already? But they say, if you do that within the first year to
Like
two,
1 or 2
like,
years, I think.
put that chip seal on, it actually like brings it another, I think he said almost 5. Like, it takes that, the
And if you
life,
miss those first 2 years, it
then
starts
it's,
dropping
then
off
there's no point
drastically.
in, yeah.
What kind of seal?
Chip seal.
Chip seal.
Did they say how long this process has been in place? Because that's new, I've never heard of it.
I wonder if we can obtain his
There's
presentation.
there's presentation packets back there, and it's recorded. Please
was really
watch it.
cool.
It's part of why we had it. I mean, this is information we need, but even better, planning commission members were there. There were about 5 of them, because they have a big voice in the planning of the future of the village, so.
I can remember some of that when they first were rolling out the road information a few years ago.
So what do we need to do with this?
You're looking at the
You need to put
language.
numbers in here?
If we get to that point, but I wanted you guys to see the language. If there's something here that you didn't like, then we would address it now. That way, this is ready for plug and play if we decide to ask for a rollback. And this is just one part of it. We have not gone further into the language for the 2 mills for the roads. If we would like to, we can ask for that, but that wasn't what we spoke about last month.
Wait, I don't see anything
I think the ballot language is fine.
sticking its, yeah.
Okay. This way we have it ready, that when, should the time come, we're not wasting time creating something and having to look at it for another month.
Good.
Do we want to see language for the 2 mills for the roads?
Sure, we might as well see it. Don't know if we have to act on it, but we might as
No,
well
you
see
don't.
it.
Yeah.
Those are the options. That's what was presented, the options. We have 3 or 4 different options of how we could do this, and that was one of them.
More info, the better.
And again, just like the other mills, in putting the 2 into the road, it does not lock us into actually levying the full amount. It means we can do up to. So in a year, maybe we won't decide to do a chip seal. We go on X amount of lane miles, and we know we're going to need to capture a certain amount. We can levy higher that year, and then the next year we,
Bring it back down.
yeah. It just gives the ability to not have to wait. Because then we put it on a ballot, you have to wait, you still wait a whole nother year to even start to capture those funds. So this rollback, we won't even see till next July, that we would be voting on in
Motion to
November.
go beyond 10?
Hurry. Okay, I'll bring back the language for the other
I'll
2.
support.
We have our police purchase. Armor Express is the preference. Please keep in mind, they are applying for the 50% grant of that cost. That is the $17,383.04. The other vendors, the first one didn't include all of the items, that's partially the reason why that one is so much less.
Could I ask Chief some questions?
Sure.
Potential, and was there, so I see there's different brands, all right? Is there other people that provide the brand that you want, or you're recommending? And I'm sorry, I'm gonna, if you could come up, just so it can be recorded, that'd be great.
Can I make a motion to extend our council meeting past 10 PM?
I would, okay. Nate already
I don't know
made-
how long-
Nate
oh.
already made that motion,
Oh,
and I
well.
support it. And then you went on.
Did?
Sorry.
We didn't have a vote.
We had a motion by Nathan, support by
It's on the
Parker,
table still.
Yeah.
to extend the meeting past 10. I apologize, I thought you said it was just you reminding us.
Oh, no,
No.
you made a
No,
motion.
All in favor to
Aye.
extend? Aye.
No.
I love it.
No by Edwards.
We waste so much time talking about nothing.
Go ahead, chief.
I don't want, can you repeat the question? I don't understand the question you asked.
So your preferred choice is the Armor Express from On Duty Gear LLC, correct?
Correct.
Is there another vendor or supplier that provides that same gear?
I'm sure there is. Nothing locally, nothing in southeast Michigan that I'm aware of. As a matter of fact, they provide that armor for communities as far away as the west side of the state. So I don't believe there are any, they have the contract for this region of the country.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, when I talked to him, the day after he submitted the bid, he was in Las Vegas, outfitting a department there, so
Okay.
I think his contract with Armor Express is pretty vast.
So my understanding of this would be more of a specialty purchase, obviously, that typically with the purchasing, if it's a Chevy van, 2,500, you know, the van's not a good one because that's unstated, but whatever. You get 3 bids for the same exact work or project or equipment, unless it's a specialty. So I guess we could look at it that way.
Well, I mean, at this point, these are all armored vests. It's
Yeah.
just, they're different brands. If you would then want us to go more specific into same brand, I mean, you're asking a lot.
Is there ever any
Well, that's what I'm
upkeep or
saying,
maintenance
specialty,
costs?
especially, I get it. They've got a,
Sorry.
if they've got a,
Okay.
I don't know, a locked-in region, then I get it.
Is there ever any upkeep or maintenance costs on this equipment? I mean, not every police officer stays the same size forever. I mean, you ever need them to get retrofitted or tailored or modified after the initial purchase?
No, they usually have some elasticity to them in the girth area. As far as maintenance, are you talking about the longevity of the lifespan of the body armor?
Yeah, I guess I was just more getting at, because it's a local company, you'd want to purchase it from a local vendor as opposed to buying this specific armor online or from a different source, from a different state, just for the purpose of wear and tear or modification if need
I think we
be.
would get the service if we ordered it online. They're gonna come out and tailor each officer. You wouldn't get that if you were ordering that.
Correct,
on-
right.
On the catalog.
Okay.
For instance, that you just give them your general parameters and they would cut it as best they could.
Right.
But they're gonna send out, this week likely, somebody to
Right.
custom fit each person with the armor. As far as the maintenance of it, most armor, doesn't matter what quality, typically has a 5-year lifespan. Now,
Okay.
that being said, that doesn't mean it's gonna be, it'll lose its resistance to a bullet
Right.
after 5 years.
Okay.
But they put a lifespan on it for a reason. They can't guarantee anything after that lifespan because they can't, you're talking about climate conditions and perspiration and all these things it's a material.
Yeah.
Right? So they put a cap on, and they have a guarantee on that 5 years. Beyond that, like the vests are now, there's no guarantee. It's a shot in the dark. Some of them are so old that can't say I would be surprised if it would stop something right now.
Right. Yeah, I guess I was more trying to emphasize the maybe benefit of purchasing it from a local company, while you might be able to get this exact equipment online or from a different source.
Right.
I've got two more.
Sure.
You said they're gonna come out, measure, outfit, put everything on. Do they also provide adequate training for it? I know in the fire field, when you got new bunker gear, you know, the manufacturer, the supplier would come out and they all go on or don or doff different when you're putting the materials on, or how to strap, or everything specific with this brand. Do they provide that adequate training with the
Well,
purchase?
What we're purchasing with those is external carriers. So those are different than an undershirt carrier. And for the officers that don't have any experience with those, certainly they'll show them how to properly insert the panels
Okay.
into the external carrier, but I don't think there's any more training than that they can provide.
Yeah, I'm unaware, I've never worked in in that field, so
Yeah.
I know in other fields that you would get, with your protective gear, you get training
Yeah.
for it, but.
The officers expressed an interest in an external carrier versus a traditional. It really helps them. What it does, it's a health and longevity. It takes a lot of that weight off their belt and puts it up here.
It's got Molly on it, so you can attach, handcuffs and taser and
Okay.
any of the other equipment. What I won't approve is a firearm or magazines. To me, that looks a little bit too militaristic, but much of the weight, the radio usually has a fitting on the back to attach your radio to, gets a lot of that weight off their hips.
Okay.
And what it also does, it's always a nice side benefit, is it's a 90-degree day and they come in for lunch. They can unzip it like a jacket, take it off and cool down. When you
Okay.
got your vest under your shirt, you can't do that.
Okay. And then, is this amount in the current budget, or do we have to make an adjustment for that? I don't know if that's something you know, or,
That's something I don't know, but I do hope that we will get approved for the 50/50 reimbursement. So I don't see that as being an issue going forward.
Right.
yeah, so,
Well, and that would be something, it's a budget amendment when we get there.
okay. So with that, I
As far
will-
as my understanding is, yes, I apologize, it is there.
No, you're fine.
Did I hear you say it's about a 5-year lifespan on this?
Typically, yes.
Okay.
And we can budget accordingly based on
We start to
cost.
plan,
Well, and
you can
what I
already
told you
see.
last time was, I'm
It'll
sorry,
be a Q4 budget.
And I don't think trustee Parker was here last time, so that might, I
Yeah,
don't
we
think-
had,
did you hear his presentation last time?
When he talked to us about all his expenses.
Oh, sorry. I
Yeah.
I thought that's why you
I
had all
have
those
a long list
questions.
of things. Some of them I covered
Just wanna
tonight, some of the more
clarify.
critical things tonight. But I made a promise to you that won't happen on my watch. These things can be progressively replaced over time instead of 15,
All at
20
once.
years down the road and all at once.
I'll make a motion to approve the purchase of the Armor Express body armor gear and attachments at the total cost of $17,383.04 from On Duty Gear LLC.
Support.
I do have one question.
Sure.
Should I assume that next month we'll see a requisition for cameras and things of that nature too, and slowly build your requirements back up that you talked about earlier
I
tonight?
should have, by next month, I should have all the bids for everything in. How the expenditures happen, that's why you guys
Some of
are
the,
sitting in your seats, but I will
some of the
certainly-
things are a little more important and time
Right. Well, I
sensitive, so
understand.
that.
Personal health is number one.
Yes, but we were close enough that I didn't feel like to the meeting when we just got the last quote on Friday, that
No,
we
I
were
agree.
close enough to not have to pull an emergency expenditure. However, depending on how the cameras come in and the price, that might be an emergency expenditure choice. It just, we're kind of playing it by
Just
ear.
kind of wondered what the plan was. That's-
Yeah.
Maybe it could be we purchase one Tahoe and make the other vehicles last a little longer.
That's
Yeah, I mean, if it gets to that.
And computers, like,
Yeah.
they take 5 minutes to turn on, they don't do anything.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah,
so much.
things I think
Okay, so we had a
definitely
motion,
priority,
could you call the roll, please? It was a motion by Parker,
supported by,
Noel?
by Care.
Parker?
yes.
Care?
Yes.
Bartholomew?
Yes.
Edwards,
Yes.
Rousseau,
Yes.
Poznanski.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
I think it's
Motion to
you know.
adjourn.
Support?
Fowler's not here.
Stole
Nobody
it
was
from
warning
you.
me to say it.
Motion by Parker, support by Edward, or who was it? Rousseau? All in favor? Aye.
You're not gonna say no?
No, I want to get out of here.
I know, I'm just kidding.
Chief, can I ask a quick question?